to somewhat start over a little bit,
Yep.
but I think it'll be okay. All right, take two. John, how you doing?
I'm great, Grant. How are you? Good to see you.
I think we're good now that we're back on YouTube, and I think things are fixed. Sorry to everyone else about those issues, but I think we got them handled.
Sweet.
So we talked for a second about Haro. Can you give me the 30-second rundown of leaving Haro again?
Yeah, so I was there just over 10 years as the brand manager of Haro, and like the industry is so flooded with product right now that I'm a creator and a visionary. You don't really need me for the next few years
Mm-hmm.
because industry is flooded with bikes, retail is flooded with bikes, and go out and buy a bike. It's the only way to keep us in jobs because yeah, the pandemic really did screw us, and now we're sitting on all this stock, everyone. So yeah, there was no point in Haro keeping me on as a brand manager. So hopefully they'll hire me back as a consultant to the Lineage line going. I started my own consulting company, Lineage Consulting Group, and that will do bikes, that will do movies, and fostering adoption, the three things that are closest to my heart.
Yeah, you said everybody has a lineage, and I was like, yeah, that is so perfect. It just makes sense.
It totally does. It totally does. And yeah, my first, I don't know if it's going to come up later or not, but my first client is actually John De Bruin, who owns Hutch. So already this week started working on the spec for, can't call it a lineage because Haro owns Lineage as a brand, as the product,
Mm-hmm.
but Lineage is a word. So it's like we all have a lineage. So I'm creating this lineage version of a Hutch Trickstar, and that'll be the first bike that hopefully I've got some good factories, and hopefully we'll have that bike out here before Christmas because the timeline is actually shortened, whereas 12 months ago it was taking us almost 18 months to get a bike.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. It's cool you already. I mean, you said before in our first attempt at this that you just got the corporation set up like yesterday or something.
Yeah, it was. I actually just got my license today from the state. My attorney emailed me my corporation number, so I actually just got that today. And yeah, so it's start off with Hutch, and then I'm talking to Torker and Redline as well, possibly doing some projects with them. Skyway is another one that we're talking to. Got a few brands in the UK I would love to work with, like DP, which I have my bike I'm building right now, which was my first freestyle bike. Rally, like if there's I'd love to bring out every childhood dream bike and a modern day bike because they're so colourful, and we can make them strong enough that yeah, they don't break like the old vintage bikes did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool that like it almost feels like a blessing in disguise to where you get to like do what you were doing at Haro with other things and bring even more like kind of like joy back to people in a even further like spread.
Yeah, Brent, that's what kept me going. The emails and the tags I would get, like, you brought me back into BMX after 30 years. I feel like a teenager again, and I'm in my 50s. Those kind of messages, like, give me goosebumps
Mm.
because I love what I feel when I'm riding my Haro Sport because it looks like my 1988 Haro Sport. And for those guys that could either not afford a Haro Freestyler, because I couldn't, 82 to 87, I couldn't afford a Haro. So there's so many people that couldn't afford a Haro or RL22 or a Torque Hutch Trickstar. Now they can because they're grown ass men and they can bring back a little bit of their childhood dreams again. And I
Yeah.
feel
And I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed, I've noticed for sure that there are what seems like sometimes more older guys getting back into BMX than
yeah,
sometimes that there are kids getting into it for the first time.
Yeah, Brent, I mean, since, you know, California closed down March 16th, my birthday, 2020, and I know 48 people that have committed suicide since then
Wow.
through motocross, skate, friends I've known for many years. 48 people have committed suicide. And you get on one of these bikes and it just brings you to living in the moment again. And that's what you get from BMX. It doesn't have to be a Lineage bike or anything. It can be any kind of bike. But I love being a little part of the BMX community that I can give these bikes and the opportunity to so many consumers that want to relive their childhood. And some will probably just hang it up in the house because it is a. These bikes are masterpieces. I mean, the work we put into them, like from the hub, the crank. I mean, the fusion crank, for instance, that we created. I used my own original fusion crank from 1989, so we could actually take a 3D mold of the crank arm and recreate it into modern day. Back in the day, it was a 20 mil axle, made it 22, and then it was just alloy right the way through the arm, whereas now you've got the chromoly insert. Doing these little touches, but keeping the aesthetic of the original shape is the key, and that's something I'm proud of. Doing that with products. I mean, same with the knee saver bar. The original was 28-inch wide, 825 in height. Brought it as an 8.5, but still kept the bends and the 25.4 to 22.2 and tapered tubing, so it will look visually exactly the same as you remember.
Yeah.
I mean, the only person that would argue with me is probably DMC, because he's always like, that's off, that color's off. I remember in 86 and it was this color. And I'm like, dude, I have an original frame that was in a box for 30 plus years. I'm color matching into that. The only difference is back in the 80s, there was lead in the paint, and now it's illegal to put lead in the paint. Well, to bring it into America, definitely, and I'm sure the UK and Australia are the same. So that's the only time you'll see a difference in a paint, is because there's no lead in it. So how can you replicate the exact color? But yeah, DMC picked it. He's like, no, it's the wrong color.
Sorry, DMC, we can't lead poison the people by getting the exact color.
Exactly. I just call it a Kawasaki green, 1986 Haro Master. It's the closest green you could get to the actual Haro Master. So yeah.
I love seeing people riding those bikes, and it's clear that you think about the implications of making those bikes and how many people come back into BMX from doing that. I'm sure it's cool to think about that.
Oh, is it such, as I said, it's a blessing that I had this opportunity to do it when I had my own company, Pilgrim. I actually made my chrome bike with gold rims and gold stem and made it look like an actual chrome torquer from like 79, but it was a brand new modern day bike. So I was even doing the Lineage look before I started at Haro.
Nice. So before you even started the Lineage project, did you think about the fact that it could bring people back in, or was it more of like a different kind of...
I knew there was eager riders out there that wanted something different. Sadly, BMX, especially in sort of the 2010, kind of 2012 group, everything was black. You know, everything was, and I hate saying it, it almost looked boring. You've got your double triangle on a frame, and it's the strongest construction. Totally get that. But in the 80s, you could tell a GT performer from a distance. You could tell a Haro Master from a distance. You could tell a CW, a Hutch, Torquer. The list goes on. You could tell the difference of the bikes. Today, you can almost strip a modern day frame and wouldn't actually know what brand it was unless it's got an investment cash dropout with the brand logo. And what I love about recreating the Lineage, I didn't invent it, I'm just recreating what was from the past, but they stand out. And young kids, Michael from Colombia, actually, the first time I met him, he was like, and this was before he was riding for Haro, he's like, can I ride your bike? This is awesome. And he's only, Michael's like 20, 21 or something. So it was cool that even younger guys love what this is, and it's as strong as any bike you can get today, if not even stronger.
Yeah, well, okay, so one thing I was going to ask you is if you remember a time when you and I actually talked
Yeah.
and met. Yeah. I was curious because it was so long ago that I'm like, there's no way he's going to remember this. But it was because of the lineage. Do you remember
Yeah.
where and when that was?
Oh my God.
It's okay. I'm not offended if you don't remember because I'm
No, I
excited to
mean,
talk about it.
honestly, Brent, I blame it on the countless concussions.
Yeah.
My memory, I mean, I get people from school hitting me up, and I'm like, I don't remember you.
Yeah.
And then you have to remind me, and I'm like, oh, it's, yeah. So please, Brent, sorry, please remind me.
I'm totally okay with it because this was in 2016. Like
Right.
this was a long time ago, and you've been in BMX for a long time, so I'm understanding of it. But the whole reason that I even said anything in the first place is because it was at InnerBike
Mhm.
2016, and that was when those bikes were there. I'm not
Yep.
sure how many of them had been done at that time. Was that one of the
That was
first?
the DMC Master, so that was 450. I remember that because Stephen Murray was there as well.
Was that
Uh,
the first one, or how many into the
no,
lineage
no.
was that?
So that was probably, I mean, it was realistically, it was probably the most high end lineage we'd done. Before that, we did the FST, the Brian Beliver model,
Mm,
but I did that as a single top tube. I was still trying to keep a bit of heritage there, but keep a modern day frame. A lot of people that I was working with were like, dude, you can't. Haro tried this in 2005, 2006, putting the sport platform on there, doing the twin top tubes, and it didn't work. Like they sold out, but no one was riding them.
mm-hmm.
And so that's why 2014 was more of a vintage bike. That was a Dominguez. 2015 was the beginning of a lineage kind of thing, even though we had all these lineage parts since 2012, since that started. But yeah, the FST was probably the first lineage named complete. And then DMC was the proper one that I really wanted to do with all the high-end parts, investment cast dropouts, internal cable routing on the lineage fork. Um, I tell you, like everyone at Haro was like, "We're scared. This is $1,299. Like
Mm-hmm.
we haven't sold bikes this price since Dave Mirra Pro models."
Yeah.
And so, but I said, so my argument then was, okay, well, no one's convinced on this. I said, let me build a sample, let me sell it to the consumer, and then we take the order. Well, the shops take the orders put the shops place their orders, and then we order what they want. Keep it limited. I don't want to flood the market. I love that we run out of a certain color, and so that's what we did. We went, okay, well, one sample cost you a couple of bucks, and then go out, take it to InnerBike, do the live video feeds, and I learned this from Steve Jobs. Like when there's an emotional connection, there's no price tag.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that when Steve Jobs spoke, people listened.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting this new iPhone. I don't need it, but I'm going to buy it. And so that's when I realized that if we can do these videos and present them online direct to the consumer's asking the retailer's asking the wholesaler, we make them.
Yeah.
So I was selling direct, and the consumer felt that they were part of the project, and I kept them updated. And that's what the consumer loves. They feel like they're a part of the bike, part of the process.
Right.
Like,
I
oh,
agree.
30 days away. Oh, that's the color. That's what it looks like in the factory when it's raw. And I kept updating online, and the consumers, as long as you communicate, even if there's a delay, and there has been many delays, as long as you communicate, communication is key. And the consumers never cancelled the bikes, and they were all happy. And a lot of them said, "Oh, I missed out again. I wish I bought this and that." And, well, it's a limited run. You can't do a limited edition and do a second run.
Right. Yeah. So at InnerBike, I was looking at the bike, and I remember asking. It had to have been you that was standing there
It
about
is. I'm
the.
remembering it now. I'm
I
remembering it.
I feel like I was asking something about like the strength of it. Like, is that still strong as having the top tubes like that, and not having the middle one, or something along those lines? And then like neither of us knew who each other were at all. Like I hadn't heard anything about you or your history or anything. And what I appreciate so much thinking back on that time is that we stood there and talked for probably like an hour. And
Yeah.
you were all excited and telling me how Albies had bought how many of these bikes already, and all these other bike shops were like into it, and just super excited about the thing. And I was like, man, then looking back and learning more about you, I'm like, damn, this guy took time out of his day to talk to some random dude and just get excited about BMX. And I'm like, wow, I just appreciate that.
No, I appreciate it, Grant, and thanks for the recall of the memory because I remember it now. Totally remember it now. Because we're in that sort of booth and then we had the square black case in the middle
Mm-hmm.
and parts and accessories and everything in there and stuff. So yeah, no, I totally remember it now in Vegas.
Yeah, and just talking about like lip tricks, and I'm like, oh yeah, you should check out Lip Lords and all that stuff. And
You were the one that introduced me to Lip Lord, so that was it. I didn't know about them before.
yeah, well, that
Yep.
was yeah. And then just seeing where it's gone since then, and then thinking back, that conversation at InnerBike, when I'm thinking about, all right, who can I have a conversation with, your name popped into my head. I'm like, this guy. And then I look it up and I'm like, oh, he's done like 8 hours with the big BMX, the big bike guys. This is gonna be, we're gonna have to figure out some good questions here to not overlap too much, because those guys did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, that was every time I'm on with them, it's at night, and I'm always having a whiskey or something near me. So I'm sticking to my water today.
The water in the Guinness cup.
Water in a Guinness cup. I know you like to do that. Oh my God, is that sacrilege?
um, I also heard that the last project that you worked on with Haro is coming out this year. Now that it's 2023.
Yeah, so there's four more bikes to come out that I worked on. The Bob Haro Freestyler, which looks like his original Freestyler back in the day, and it comes with the Oakley B1Bs. So Brian Takumi, thank you so much, because he only lets Todd Lyons SE put those Oakley grips on his bike. So but he loves Haro, and he was like, look, we'll do this. All Oakley wants is a sample bike to hang in their museum.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So we managed to get again the Bob Haro bike. We managed to get the Oakley B1Bs. They printed the opposite color. They had the yellow base with red on top, but Bob originally rode red base with yellow. So it was like we had to get them switched out pretty fast. So Colby over at ODI managed to reprint and get them done, and then Kevin Connors at Haro shipped them over to Taiwan, and I believe they're getting switched out, and the correct color will be on the bike. So,
What does it take?
oh, I hope I'm not there, so I don't know.
Yeah, like what does it take to really make something like that, like a very fine detail of something? I mean, you said that he only lets Todd Lyons use those grips. Like, how does that process even work?
Yeah, I mean, like you can go on eBay right now, and the grips that are going on the Bob Haro bike, the replica grips, are $350.
Right.
You know, so as I said, the only reason Brian agreed to allow Haro to use it is because he's a Haro fan.
Mm-hmm.
And to show you how much, Brian Takumi is such a fan, he pays retail for all his bike parts.
Oh wow.
He buys a lot of his stuff from Pat at Flatland Fuel, Brian told me, because he did us the favor of doing these grips. And I was like, look, thanks, bro. Is there anything you need from Haro? And he goes, nah, man, I buy retail. And I'm like, wow. But that's keeping retail in business, and I really appreciate that. Because, yeah, so it's because he loves Haro, and he managed to get that across the line with the higher ups at Oakley.
That's awesome that even could be possible. And then there's other things like how you guys have completely recreated a part to be similar to a part that was back in the day, to
Yeah.
make these bikes look like as close as possible. I mean, I think I remember you said something about the cranks already, but also the pedals.
Yep, the pedals were almost a bit of a throwback to the Shimano DX pedal. Um, the sprocket, so the 2016 was more like a unidirectional sprocket. 2017 was starting to get into Peregrine in 1987 were on a lot of the Haro bikes. So we couldn't use Peregrine, so I thought, okay, well, let's change it a little bit. So have the whole look and feel of Peregrine on the sprocket, but it was all Haro. So it said, and on the rims it says, so Peregrine used to put on their Super Pro rims, only used with Peregrine HP tires, you know, like, so the little jokes like that, and I was putting in the sorts of water transfer decal, instead of just a normal decal, so it doesn't scratch off. So on the rim, it would say only used with Haro HPF 100 psi tires, you know, and people would be like, is this rim only for Haro tires? And we all, like, come on, dude, it's a 20-inch wheel, you can ride anything.
It's an Easter egg.
I love doing that, and then the Peregrine hubs were just so iconic back then. So Pete Demos, the art director at Haro, he redesigned it to look like the Peregrine hub, but it was Lineage seat clamp that was like a Peregrine, and even has the little notches. And I guarantee most people that got a 2017, 2018 Master or Sport don't understand or realize that seat clamp has actually got the machining underneath it that Peregrine originally had. So, I mean, in Asia, in Taiwan, where we make all these bikes, I'm known as Mr. 1 millimeter.
Yeah.
Because I need everything so perfect and precise. And if it's not 99.99, I'm rejecting it. And I've rejected a lot of stuff, and not being popular on the production lines.
Yeah, I heard.
One thing, you're stopping the entire production. And honestly, they want to put down e-bikes whilst we're stopping. It's like, well, you can't just take all the Haros off and do another company. So I wasn't popular for a while in Taiwan, but I've reached out to them this week, and everyone wants to work with me again. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. I heard that you became Mr. Half a Millimeter.
I did. Who told you that?
You did in the podcast.
Oh. Damn. Yeah, I did. They got that bad. They were like, half millimeter. I'm like, I'm not being racist in any way. It's just how how the Taiwanese speak to me.
Yeah, that's, I mean, but when you want to make something right, that's what you have to do.
You have to, and they will follow the exact direction. I mean, I remember Bob and a few other brands went to Taiwan in the mid-'80s and taught them how America builds bikes. I mean, that's what happened. So Haro made some 1982, 1983 freestylers here, half the year with the Master and Sport in America, and then everything else was made in Taiwan. So from pretty much 1984 to today, everything's been Taiwanese, or obviously when it's under $500, you have to go China. If it's $500 retail bike. Lineage, we don't have one item made in China on the bike. Even like the KMC chains and everything, they're made in Taiwan. And go to all the factories. I mean, people don't realize, like, when you break a bike down, it's about 68 factories you have to deal with to build one bicycle.
Right.
Until you've had four, you know? It's not like, oh, here you go, here's a bike, make it for me. You have to contact the hub maker, the spoke maker, the rim maker, the inner tube, the tire, the crank, the pedal, the bottom bracket. Like, there is so much. Everything is a different factory.
Right, and then when you break that down even further, somebody has to design each one of those, and like, it's not as simple as like, here's a picture, make this bike. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Oh man, I mean, I'll tell you, this is a heartbreaking story. When I was creating the Haro HPF tire, so it was one of the popular tires in the 80s, recreated it for today. I took my original tires from 1988 over there and left them with them so Kenda could recreate the exact mold, but make it as a 2.2 tire instead of the 2.0s back then. They pump the tire up to 100 psi and it explodes. My tires, $800, explode. And I'm
Yep.
like, he goes, don't worry, we get measurements. And I'm like, great.
We'll make
So
you new ones.
I know. I mean, a lot of people don't realize. Like even they were going through my Fusion crank, the crank arm, they actually corroded the crank arm, creating the mold.
Yeah.
Like they gave me my crank arm back, and it was all corroded. The B1B number plate. So Haro and Oakley had that B1B thing, but there was a B1B number plate that we did for Haro. And when they did the scan of it, the plate is painted around the edge. It was an original number plate, and they accidentally took some of the paint off, and it was missing.
That's yeah.
So yeah, it's you. I put my heart and soul into these projects, and I use my own personal collection of 128 Haros, which was sick. But, but I used all those items so that externally it looked 100% exact what it was back in the day. Internally, I would change it so that no one could try and sell a replica part for an original.
That's interesting. I didn't know that side of it.
Oh, I mean, even if you're sitting on a Haro Master and you look down, and especially like between the sort of the 87 right up to the Bashguard bikes, it went from straight twin top tube to a swivel. The swivel is, I would say, 99.9% exact to the original swivel.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is the original bike was 19.5, now it's 20.5. So it was such a short frame, so it does look a little bit longer. But that bend and that swivel, and same with the Sport, getting it around. Originally, they gave us it like this in Taiwan. I'm like, no, it has to curve, and showed them all the dimensions, and it's painful. But I want, again, that person that may have had a Haro back in the day or wished they had a Haro in the 80s, they get on that bike and you're emotionally connected to the bike because it reminds you of riding that Master Sport back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's, I don't know. I
I
think
never cut corners, Brim. I never cut corners. I'd rather spend more to bring out the best. And some people complain that, like the Bob Haro bike is $2,000, but there's not anything cheap on that bike. Everything costs. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, people are going to complain if you do it perfect, and people are going to complain if you don't do it perfect.
Exactly. Money talks. They're sold out. They're completely sold out. And I collect every single Lineage bike that we brought out over the past, we're going on 10 years now. And so I collect all #1 serial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And the factory, because I was still at Haro, they have my name on the box. And I reached out to Kevin Connors the other day and I said, dude, please make sure that #1 is still coming here. And he goes, I'll make sure to come. Because I'm still going to buy it.
Yeah.
You know, I bought every single bike when I worked at Haro. I didn't get a free bike. I bought every single bike. And even my samples. And then at the end, once I test the samples, I would sell them to a friend, a local friend here in San Diego. And so many people love the sample because it's the only one.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you really get exclusive if you're talking about a sample.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple actually ended up in the UK. My 2019 Bashguard bike and the 2021 Airmaster in the UK, because I was using them whilst I was riding and recreating tricks 30 years later and going back and recreating them in the same spots.
That's amazing.
Using the Lineage bike to go back to the original spot. And there was one wall ride that, you know, Grant Smith from BSD. Yeah. So I've been friends with Grant since 89, 88, 89. And so Grant was like, all right, we'll drive up from Glasgow and bring you a kicker, because I wanted to do this wall ride I did back in 91. Back in 91, I was like 7 feet off the ground on this wall ride. On his kicker, I'm getting like 3 feet off the ground. And I'm like, come on. And everyone's like, you can do it, you can do it. And I'm like, geez. And it was private property. So I had to sign a disclaimer. I had to, what's it called when you have, it's not the insurance. There was something else I had to basically say what was the pros and cons, what could happen, what didn't happen. And so I had to sign all these waivers for 3 months leading up just to ride this wall. And then I realized when they built this complex where this wall is, it's it's uphill, so I had to ride uphill to the wall. So yeah, I was getting 3 feet, not 6, 7 feet like it was back in the day.
Yeah.
I was wearing my Vision streetwear jacket from '88.
I was just gonna ask, have you like taken photos or have you matched a photo from back then to today and tried to like recreate even that part of it?
Oh yeah, I've done that so many times. With my sport, with my 2019 Master, went back to a few of the spots that I did with the Bash Guard, and then the Air Master, I was riding in 1991. I went back last year, 2022, so I was 31 years after the fact. And again, wearing my Vision streetwear jacket, the Lineage Airmaster looked exactly the same as the Airmaster I rode back in '91. In '91, I got so high, when I came off, I freaking nose cased and snapped my head tube off.
Ooh.
And I've still got that bike. It's hanging up on my wall, my timeline of all my bikes.
Yeah, so you mentioned 128 bikes. I feel like if you want to hear about the 128 bikes, watch the Big BMX. What's it called?
Big Bike BMX, yeah.
Big Bike BMX podcast. He's got 2 parts on there, then one on the movie. But I'm curious because you said in there that you sold your collection, except for a few of your favorites.
Yep.
I'm curious how much the collection has grown again since you sold off those other ones.
I know. It's like, so I had 128 bikes. I sold about 100 and bought this house.
Yeah.
So, as Bob said back in the day, BMX phase. So, I wanted to keep the collection. I wanted Haro to have the collection because it was the entire timeline of Haro's history. It was every pro model, right up to the Nyquist and the Miras and everything. It was every pro model of Haro's existence. But yeah, sadly, it was 350 grand. I mean, it was a lot of bikes. So I had to split them up and sell them all, and went all over the world to good people, and managed to buy this house. So the ones I kept were the ones I personally rode. The 88 Sport, I actually had a NOS 88 Sport that I had collected over the years, but I still had my original one that's been re-welded and repainted and everything. My 89 Chrome Master, my 89 Black Master, and my 91 Air Master. I kept them, and I had a Dino Slammer, I kept that. I've got my Homeless Mac, and I've just finished my 2 standards. 1995 STA and 1996 Lengthy. So my Trans Green STA and my Trans Blue Lengthy. And then right now, I've almost finished my first freestyle bike. It's right behind me.
Yeah, we need to see that.
I'm waiting for the grips to turn up. So
tell me about this bike.
This is a DP Firebird. So this is made in England. And as you can see, it's got the twin top tube. So it's almost a bit like a Haro Master.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got the Tough Neck USA made stem, Tough Neck sprocket. So this I actually rode when I was a kid, and it was the first freestyle bike. So that was I'll come back in. That was 1986. I rode that bike, and I totally forgot. Even some of my friends were like, "I don't remember you riding a DP." I forgot I had a DP until you actually watch the credits in my movie, The Ride, and there's clips of me from 1986 trying to do flatland on that bike.
And out in the street.
Yep. So that's why I recreated that bike. I was like, shit, that was my first freestyle bike. It wasn't a Haro Sport. It was a DP Firebird, and I bought that. My friend Ben Joe drove like 100 miles to go and pick the bike up in England. So this was only last year. He picked it up, drove 100 miles. Brought it back to his house, and then brought it to America with him for me.
Wow. I mean, that's...
And there was one person really wanting that bike, and that was Jamie Bestwick. So, sorry, Jamie. There's probably another one available somewhere.
That's funny. He could challenge you to a 5-tap off. And
oh, yeah, man. Jamie is just still killing it. And not many people knew, but I mean, yeah, he was a mini ramp rider. He could do everything.
Oh,
he
yeah.
could ride there. He could do street. Like, Jamie is, yeah, I mean, flatland as well. he's got everything under his belt. Everyone in modern days, since the 2000s, know him as a vert rider, but Jenny rides everything.
Right. I mean, you don't get that good at vert and all of the different tricks that he's doing on vert by only being a vert rider.
Yep, exactly. So it was pretty cool. So I'm stoked to get that one. I'm just waiting for the Amy grips to turn up.
Yeah, how long do you think it'll? I mean, I guess you can't really say how long it'll take because you don't know.
It was crazy. So I bought them. There was a shop in Philadelphia had them. So I bought them from there on the 18th of December. They meant to arrive on the 30th of December. So 12 days from Philly. It's now, yeah. They emailed me back and says, oh, we found it. It's in transit and you'll have it Tuesday. So I'll be able to finish the bike off on Tuesday.
Oh, like completely done?
Yeah, that's it. Completely done. I just need the grips.
Oh, man.
Dom Phipps, who's a historian and builds a lot of stuff, he gave me the Panaracer tires. So he actually went out himself and remade the Panaracer tires.
What do you think people are gonna do as time goes and like the supply of what's actually out there? Just is it gonna be just like people who collect stuff letting out of their collection? Like, I don't know what'll happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can only speak for myself. I'm forecasting that realistically, I mean, yeah, I'm going to be 51 in 2 months. Jesus. A lot of these guys that are 50, getting into the 55, once you reach 60, it's like definitely 20-inch. It's getting hard at 55, 60 to ride a 20-inch. So a lot of guys are getting on the big bikes. But I see Lineage creations of the bikes that you always wanted, if it's a Hutch, if it's a Redline, Skyway. I'm giving it a 5-year timeline. And then maybe, I mean, fixie gear bikes were massive. Then Todd brought out the big bikes. Is something next in 5 years? I'd love to create something.
Yeah.
Because I know everything has a timeline, everything, you know, and so I'm being realistic with the brands I'm talking to. It's like, look, you got to get in now because there isn't any Lineage products out there. Once the Bob Haro comes out, then in July, there's a Groundmaster coming out and a 20-inch and a specific flatland Groundmaster and a 26-inch. So this is going to be interesting because I was working with RL Osborne on this.
Yeah.
And we're going to do an RL Osborne model, but then he chose to go another path. And so we kept it as a Groundmaster. And because he felt I was wrong with my geometry. And at Woodward last year, he came up to me and he said, "You were right." But so the bike will be out in July, a 26-inch Groundmaster. That's going to be amazing. So, and then the Sport comes out in a 20-inch and a 26-inch, and that Sport's got some nice neon graphics and neon parts on it, which is going to be pretty sweet. And I love doing a painted bike because you can do the water transfer decal, and I see guys still riding. Like the DMC was a Mylar decal, which is a normal sticker, and then 2017 managed to do the water transfer. Again, most people were against me, saying people want to take their stickers off, and I'm like, but these guys that are emotionally connected to this bike, they want it to look brand new every day. And I've got friends that still ride in 2017 Masters and Sports, and especially the Master, they're doing flatland and they're scuffing, and you just clean over the clear coat and the decals are perfect. So the bike will look as new as you want it to, as long as you look after it.
Huh, that's pretty cool. I'm the kind of person that I clean my bike when it's new and try and keep it looking as new as possible, as long as possible. So that's pretty cool to hear that that's possible.
Oh yeah, I mean, mountain bike and road have been using it for years. So the water transfer decal, and it's the water transfer decal. I don't know if you ever played around with model aeroplanes as a kid, and you would get the sticker kit. So this is more like the 80s and the 70s, but like you would get this plastic plane and you'd have to glue it and build it all, or you would get a warship, but then you would get these little decals and you'd have to dip them in water to then place them on. They were that thin. And that's the same as the water transfer decals on the bikes. They're so thin that once you put the clear coat on it, you can't even feel the sticker.
Yeah.
Which is, I love it. And again, a lot of people didn't want it, but then when they buy the bike and realize that it doesn't scuff off, it doesn't peel, and when you've got a tapered tube, so when you've got this tapered leg or whatever, to keep a sticker from having a little ripple on it, it's impossible. But if you do it as a water transfer decal and put the clear on it, you've already stretched it, it's held in place, there's no movement, so there's no bubbles. So that's why I like doing water transfer.
Yeah, that makes sense. It just sounds like it's better quality.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're proud of the brand, you want to show it off.
Yeah. Is there a bike that like have you already done the best of the best in your mind for like which one you would pick to do, or is that yet to come?
If Haro decide to bring me back as a consultant, a lot of people have asked for the Pink Master and Pink Sport that came out in 1985. And, I'm really good friends with Bob Haro, and Bob told me recently he never made that bike.
Hmm.
He doesn't know who did it might have been Jim Ford, but Bob said he never made a Pink Master or a Pink Sport.
Huh.
So I would still like to bring it out because someone did it and they were out there and it was almost like a pink pastel color kind of thing. So I'd like to do that. The black gray chrome DMC Lineage bike. The black and gray came out as a Legends, which is the big bike. So that's out now, but I always wanted to do that as a 20-inch Lineage rideable bike. And again, there's a lot. There's still about another 5 years of product that could come out with Haro as well, for sure.
Yeah. So was that you have done your dream bike with that, or you haven't yet?
My dream bike would definitely have to be the Bob Haro Freestyler. Recreating that, making it as a modern day rideable bike. I've seen a few comments, people are questioning why I put a 15 offset on the fork instead of the 33 offset as a Lineage cast dropout. And Brad, when you're riding mini ramp or whatever, having that 15 offset, I mean, for Canadians, toothpicks, there's so much more you could do. Hang fives are so much easier with that shallow offset. So that's why I wanted to do. It's based off Matthias D'Amboise fork, the La Bastille, but made it as a Groundmaster fork with 990 mounts, internal cable routing. So 165 cranks. Again, I've seen people go, why is it 165, not 175? I'm like, well, 165, your feet are here. They're closer. So if you're really riding, because these aren't built to do 20 miles. These are built to ride on the ramp and do flatland or whatever you want to do. So a 165 crank makes it so much easier if you're doing a tail whip, if you're doing a whiplash, to actually grab back onto the pedals. Because realistically, you're 20 mil closer than you are on a 175.
Yeah, I love the fine line between function and adhering to what it was, because there's such a fine line, and then either way you go on that line, people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm looking forward to people getting because the crank is 165, but it says Lineage, but it's got the 3 red line stripes on it, so it looks like the red line 401 crank, but it's a Lineage crank. So just those little details I love putting in there. But again, like, you've got the Lineage stem and you've got a Groundmaster. So you've got the 1982 Haro Freestyler, and then you've got the 1991 Haro Master. Well, 1991 had a fusion stem, but back in 1982 it was only a frame set, and a lot of them came with a vector bar. So it was that one-piece bar stem combo. Again, I didn't want to put it on this bike because it brings your top tube really is, you've shrunk 40 mil. Right. You're bringing it so close that you would feel like you were on a 16-inch frame instead of a 48 stem or a 52 stem. But so those little things, like, you can still have that emotional connection without putting a modern day vector bar on it. And that's why we still put the Lineage stem, but making sure that it says Haro and not Fusion, because you're trying to replicate something 40 years ago when Fusion never existed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that was painful as well, telling the factory the Bob Haro has this Haro stem, the Groundmaster has the Fusion stem, and it's all in the spec, but there's still crossover. And the past couple of years, we haven't been able to QC our bikes in Asia. I mean, I'm going to Taiwan in March for the first time in 3 years. So all these bikes are getting sent, and we haven't seen the quality until it arrives. We hope they're okay.
Yeah, that's a
So
scary
difficult.
thought.
It's so scary. It's so scary because I loved being there for every production. Loved it. And loved being a pain in the ass because at the end of the day, the consumer gets what he wanted and he gets what I envisioned. So that's the most important thing. I just want to please the consumer that they want to come back for more. I mean, there's a guy, Joe Vasquez, and Ben. So Joe Vasquez lives in San Jose, and Ben Joe, who picked up this DP, lives over in England. Both of them have between 20 and 24 Lineage bikes.
Wow.
I'm like, thanks, you get me in a job.
No doubt. That's a huge down payment on a house.
I know, I'm like, what the? So yeah, so it's cool. It's cool when you get that, and that people can actually feel a connection to their bicycle, which is awesome in their late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of those bikes around, people riding them, and it's always cool because you can tell that they have that emotional connection. I mean, that's most of the time why people get them. There was a dude in the chat, Stony, old fat guy BMX. He said, I have 6 of John's bikes and love everything about all of them.
Thanks, Tony. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So it's, but again, I thank everyone that has ever bought one of these bikes because it did. I mean, 10% of my job was Lineage. 90% was everything else when I was a brand manager, you know? You had to look after the TM, the team, the product managers, then you're working with the art department, you have to do the ads, the ad campaign, the budgets, everything else. But that 10% of my job was 100% of my devotion, passion, love. Like a $249 Haro shredder. How am I going to put the same passion into that as I do into a Lineage bike? And that's why they were so expensive, because everything, that seat clamp is probably, $30.
Right.
There's nothing cheap on there. So Lineage kept me at Haro, and without Lineage, it would have been difficult for me to stay there because I can't just do something. And I don't like that word just. Like, I'll just do it. Well, you're going to do it half-assed. So it's like drop just and drop if, it's when. So there's a way of our vocabulary on creating the possibilities. So when am I doing that? And I got let go by Haro, and I'm like, shit, on the vodka, drinking like crazy. And I'm like, it's just the end of a chapter. I mean, I've went through worse, so I'll get through this.
Well, I think it might almost be even like could be an exciting thing in that you take, okay, I have 10% of my time devoted to these Lineage projects. Okay, now you're on your own with your corporation. You can put 90% of your time into the ones that go for the companies that you're consulting with. And that's kind of, feel like it'd be exciting in itself.
Oh man, I'm so excited. Like, I wanted to start all this last year, but again, with tax and everything else, I didn't want to start anything until the 2nd of January. So that's when I filed everything on the 18th of December for my business. But my attorney just told me this morning in an email that it's been approved and I've got my business number and I can go ahead. So I have to go back to the bank and set up my bank account for the business, and looking forward to, as I said, just putting smiles on middle-aged men's faces and women. Women out there, like just seeing that smile and someone just come up and saying thank you. That's all I could ever expect and ask for.
Absolutely. So one thing I forgot to ask you when you're talking about that bike that's behind you. So is that that model, was that your first like real BMX bike?
Yeah, that was my first freestyle bike. I'm going to see if I can find. I did a screen grab actually from the film, and I'm trying to see
I
if I
just
still
saw
have
it. I actually watched it today.
what the ride.
Yeah,
Oh, you did?
when you asked me if I had seen it, I was about 40 minutes in.
Oh shit!
But
Uh,
I remember that specifically because you were trying something on the front end of the bike.
yeah, I'm trying.
And
Oh,
I
there
remember,
it is. Look, there's me walking out with the bike.
yep.
That's a DP Firebird, and that boombox there is actually hanging up in my kitchen,
Is that
covered in
the
swat.
one from the
That's my original. Yeah.
like from the podcast that you talked about in there?
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. See, that's why I'm never getting rid of anything because
I
I
know
want to
people
be
are
able
like,
to.
people say, how do you have this shit? I mean, I have upstairs, I have a little ET doll from when I
Mhm.
went and saw ET that got me into BMX. My foster father bought me that ET doll in 1982, and to know that it's still there 40 years later, I'm just like, it's
That's
pretty
awesome.
emotional. Like I love these little things, and people are always like, how did you save all this stuff, or where did all these photos and videos and everything come from? It's like I've always archived everything because we'll probably get into it later, but my biological family, before I was adopted, I had nothing. There was one photo of me in existence.
Mm.
So from 0 to 7, I had nothing.
Yeah.
So now that I have something, I've got my Donkey Kong from 1982
Yeah.
in the box still. Like it was a Christmas gift, and so I can still take it out. I put batteries in it, it still works. 40-year-old Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I still
Nintendo.
have all mine too. Like, I have all of that stuff as well, just because it's like, I don't ever want to have to remember something just from the memory of it. That's why I make videos. That's why I'm filming every session I have, because I want to be able to personally look back on that day if I ever want to, and I want the people who were there to be able to look back on it.
Totally, totally. And I've actually put in my will like certain bikes are getting donated to either my school that I went to as a teenager, or there was an old abandoned factory we used to ride, and we built ramps inside it. It was three
Hmm.
stories of the factory in Dundee, and that's now Dundee Contemporary Arts Centre, and it's got two cinemas in there. It's got a restaurant, a bar, art school. I mean, this whole crazy. Donating my Dino Slammer from '92 to them, and like I would love this stuff to go somewhere. I don't want to just sell it,
Yeah.
So I'd rather give than get some money for it, because I'd like it to be kept somewhere that it is memorable, and it was definitely memorable there because I rode it there in that
Right.
old warehouse.
That's amazing. It's cool to be intentional like that. I did want to bring up, because in the movie it shows you seeing ET, and it seems like it's a pretty significant moment, like from how it's showing it. Obviously, it's intentional because it's a movie,
Yeah.
and then it shows you seeing BMX as you're going to school. So
Yeah.
I feel like, was the ET part shown while your character was in the locked
Juvie.
up? Yeah. So is that how that happened, or how did that happen in
No.
real life?
So in real life, I got out of juvie when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And then I went to stay with my foster parents, and my parents took me to see E.T.
Okay.
In the movie, they wanted to sort of speed up that era between 7-year-old and 16,
Right.
so that pretty much in 8 months, I became Ryan Williams, Like,
Yeah.
it was pretty crazy, but it took 8 years to get semi-decent. But ET was the turning point, and I didn't realize until years later that Bob Haro was the one with the balaclava on.
Really?
That's Bob Haro that pulls the balaclava on. And Robert, I'll always get his name wrong, Robert Cardoza. He's the one with the red hat and the headphones.
He was in here. He was watching.
Robert was here?
He said He said, please, it was at the beginning, but we were talking about something, so I didn't want to interrupt. He said, please tell John, Robert, and Jane say hi. We're always here for you.
Oh, Jesus. Look, there's the goosebumps again. I mean, so Robert, and did you hear Robert's bike sold for, I think it might have even been on our BMX the other day, but it was something like $70,000.
Holy
The
cow.
moon bike.
Yeah, he's still in here. He said,
All
thanks,
right, is
buddy.
Robert
So,
there?
so Robert was in the, what were you saying about him?
So Robert was the first stuntman in ET. He's the one with the red hat and the headphones. I believe, Robert. Hopefully.
He can
I
correct
believe-
us if not.
Yeah. And then Robert called Bob. And then brought Bob in as well. So there was four of them. So, but I remember the whole story because I listened to one of Robert's podcasts, and I think either he was working for the bike shop or his family was part of the bike shop, and Spielberg needed some stunt doubles, and Robert was the one that actually brought everyone together.
He said it sold for 115,000. What is that? That's because I saw in the caption on the RBMX thing, the most expensive bike ever. So yeah, that is. I mean, I feel like it'd be pretty acceptable to say that's the most expensive bicycle that's ever sold.
Yeah, I mean that's the original bike that he rode back in 1982 in ET. So they were all Kuwahara, which was always strange. I thought, why didn't Bob ride a Haro instead of the Kuwahara? But Kuwahara, I'm sure. Well, they were filming in '81 actually. They were filming ET in '81. It came out in '82, so I'm sure that's why they were all on Kuwahara. Part of the deal. And so going back to that clip that was in our movie, my producer Hadil Rada is friends with Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
He went over to Amblin, which is in Universal Studios, knocked on his door and said, "Steven, may I have a word?" So she walked into Spielberg's office and said, "We're making a movie about a kid that was inspired by your movie." And he went, "Oh, have a seat." So she told him the story, and he said, "What do you need?" She goes, "We need clips of ET." You can look at any movie in 40 years, there's never been a clip of ET in any movie.
Wow, so you got the real deal clip.
So Steven
to
Spielberg
show.
signed off on it to say, you can have these clips.
Wow, that is.
So yeah, so it was, and it was funny actually, when I was back home in Scotland in August, Grant Smith and I went to the old cinema that used to be there. It's broken up and everything, and one part of it is like a little cafe, and we had breakfast there. So it was almost 40 years after seeing ET, I went back to the original cinema in Glasgow on Byers Road to have breakfast with Grant.
Dude, that's so incredible. And then to have Robert, hanging out with us right now. That's why we do it live, because we can have literally people who are that significant to the story hanging out and chatting with us. Kurt Schmidt also said, "What's up, Johnny?"
Oh, dude. Fucking goosebumps everywhere. Hey, Kurt, love you, bro.
Kurt is rad. I'm excited to have him on here one day, too.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
For real.
Kurt, you're a legend.
What I meant to bring up with that bike is I wanted to know what were some of the first tricks that you remembered doing whenever you first started riding. Actually, hold the thought. So did you ever see people riding outside of school and then before you started riding, or were you already riding and that was just something they kind of put in the movie?
Yeah, so the first time I actually saw BMX was ET. Then my dad had a BMX track. And so you could go down to the BMX track and have a loaner bike.
Okay.
So that was in '82. And we would go down there, but I hate to say it, but I was bored. I mean, the racetracks were probably a foot tall, little moguls and everything. So I was kind of bored. And back then, I don't know if it was all racetracks, but this racetrack, you could only really ride with two people. It was such a thin little track. So I kind of got bored of just going around the racetrack, and I ended up starting to jump off the side and everything because I saw a couple of the other guys do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the 10th of March 1983, so we're coming up for 40 years.
Yeah.
My parents took me and bought me my first BMX bike. So in the movie, it's sitting in the garage, but in real life, my dad and mum took me to the BMX shop, Dale's in Glasgow, which is still running today.
Wow.
And Amos Burke, that rides for S&M. Amos used to work at Dale's. So these are all my childhood friends.
Dude, it's so crazy to think about that.
So I bought my parents bought the bike, and it was a chrome BMX, you know. And next to it was a Diamondback Viper, and there was a Kuahara, and I went this Piranha XL, which was made in England, and I didn't know much because it was chrome and it had mag wheels. And later on in life, I learned that it was a piece of shit. Had CW bars on it, which this has, but so the scene when they're riding the bikes for the first time, and you have to look close. You can look close to the left, and Ryan Nyquist is playing a kid in school.
Oh, that's funny. I didn't notice that one.
Yeah, he's playing Flatland. He's trying Flatland, and it's so funny. So, it was pretty cool. But that scene was made up, but it was based off of me going to that racetrack and seeing the guys for the first time.
Right. Yeah. I just kind of wondered how that actually played out, because I knew that obviously for movies that you have to sometimes, embellish on time, because you can't make people sit through how much time it would take to show that year-long or 7 years long process, or however long it was. So yeah, totally get that. But back to no, go ahead.
And I was going to say, at school, like when I was at 15, probably, I mean, I was getting harassed for still riding a BMX. I was like, why are you riding a kid's bike? Why don't you grow up? Like at 15 years old. And now you look at BMXers, most decent riders are starting at 14, 15 and then getting great. You'll see some of these amazing kids at 6, 7, 8 years old, but there's not many really under the 14 that are actually getting noticed at the skate parks. And so I was never harassed because I was an angry kid at school, so no one would harass me. But it was like just everyone questioned you, like grow up. And then when I was 18, I'm still riding a BMX bike. Why don't you buy a car? Why are you on that kid's bike? And then 25, and then I've never stopped in 40 years. And now people that questioned me way back are like, you're a fucking legend, dude. You kept it going.
Yeah.
I'm like 51 years old and still riding a kid's bike. Love it.
Hell yeah. That's
Sorry, what were you going to say, Brent?
I was just gonna go back to the question of like, what were some of the first tricks that you remember learning back then?
So on the Piranha XL, the first thing I remember vividly was being able to bunny hop up a curb. I thought I was like 11, and I'm just like, no way, no one's around to see it. I'm like, how? Because like no one was teaching you how to bunny hop. Like it was 1983, we didn't have videos, and
right.
I wasn't magazines and stuff. I'm trying to remember one of my friends, I think it was again at that BMX track, I saw them and the first bunny hop I was sort of lifting the front wheel and the back wheel just hitting the curb and smashing up, and then eventually getting it. But the first tricks I started to do were rock walks. Yeah. Right? And I still do that today on the ramp. I love it. And I'm trying to remember maybe pinky squeaks, I can't remember. It was you're standing on the platform, your pedal is high, so your crank is almost 180, 170. You're leaning on your left foot's on the platform, on the pedal, and then you're scuffing the front wheel and doing a whole 360 turn.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the name of that is, but I can picture it.
I remember. Yeah, so those were the little ones, and then front hops, and then back hops, and then I even learned to do back hop candy bars, just back hopping.
Oh, now you're speaking my language.
So that was pretty cool. That was some good times, definitely.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Doing Fufanu candy bars is like one of my favorite tricks to do.
And I've never done that. I've done a Foof can, but never done a Foof candy bar.
You should do it. It works. It works perfectly.
Because the way I go, like my right foot is forward.
Oh, yeah.
My left foot off, but I air to the right. So I'd be like blind spot almost to take that foot off, because I can't imagine I can get my, well, no.
Which way do
See,
you foof?
old way I used to do it with the foot on the pedal and then the leg up, but I used to do like no-footed candy bar
Yep.
flyouts, and that was the right foot over. So maybe, yeah, okay, now, okay, you've got me thinking.
Yeah, well, so I'm weird like that too. When I do a no-footed candy bar, I use my right foot, but when I do a foof candy bar, I use my left foot.
So
Or,
I'm the
no,
opposite,
no, no,
right?
no, no. I'm lying. I'm lying. When I do a foof candy bar, I use my right foot. When I do
Yeah.
a saran wrap, I use my left foot. When I do no-footed candy bar, right foot. I gotta think these all through. But yeah, you could do it. I know you could.
Yeah. Right. All right. I'm gonna be. Better get to the skate park. I tell you, fucking hell, it hurts falling on concrete.
Yeah, do it on a wedge first.
I know. I need to. I need to find. I might actually. Steve Caballero keeps inviting me over to his little mini ramp, so I'll have to head over there. It's only 10 minutes down the road.
There you go. What was the first air trick? Can you remember?
My first air trick was probably a 1 footer,
That
but
makes
it was
sense.
weird because I've got photos of it as well, and my 1 foot. Don't ask me why, but somehow my 1 footer is topside.
Mine too. The same thing.
My foot is coming off topside, not like a normal inverted 1 footer. So I was actually, yeah, so that was pretty weird. So that was my first probably air trick. And that was about, yeah, 87, I think it was, when I had my first handmade half pipe.
That's so cool. I just love hearing this stuff because everybody's first tricks and things that they learned is usually different.
Yeah, yeah. And I used to get stopped actually just going up the vert ramp and like doing a foot plant, and you stick for like a second or two, and then you're back in on the ramp. And it was like, these are just the very early tricks. I mean, no one was doing tail whips. Joe Johnson, right here, Joe
Uh-huh.
Johnson. Joe Johnson wasn't doing tail whips in '87, so you never thought of a tail whip foot plant when you were touching the vert of the vert ramp or anything like that. So it was just stopped to get up there and actually stall it for a second or two.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all of that is just anything new. I mean, my first like real trick aside from just like hitting my front tire on like a tire of a car and leaning forward. First trick I would say besides that was just a rolling crank flip.
You're right, yeah.
But I have it on video, similar to how you're saying you have these pictures. Like I have that on video, and
Yep.
I love being able to look back on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know. I love that. My parents had a video camera, so I got footage obviously on this in '86. But yeah, it wasn't my camera, so I couldn't just take it, and it was massive. It was like this size
Mm-hmm.
soda camera.
Yeah.
So yeah, so and then I'm trying to think, and then my friend had a camera over in Dundee, Scotland, and that we probably started to film ourselves about '89. But my mum was at the university, so she was a lecturer, so she would bring the university camera home, and we would get to borrow that. So that was pretty sweet.
That's pretty unique too, because I mean, when you think about that time period, how many people are like, "Man, I wish I had video from all this," and it just wasn't easy to make that
No,
happen.
no, exactly. So it was pretty cool because for for me, I would say it was the way I could film myself and see how I was doing things wrong,
Mm.
because I certainly wasn't the smoothest rider. I remember my friend Alan Smith called me Scott Ruffle, so he said it was a mix between Scott Carroll and Andy Ruffle. So it was like, I don't know. But yeah, I was just all over the place. I was never known as the smoothest rider. So my friends were actually commenting when they saw Chase Hawk as a stunt double in the movie. And they're like, oh yeah, John, you were as smooth as Chase. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's funny.
a
I was
mix of Nyquist and Hawk.
Yeah, I that's pretty funny. I was watching the movie because I watched all the podcasts first and heard you talking about everything. Then I watched and I was trying to just focus as much as I could on the little details and trying to pick up on the little Easter eggs and things. And they did a pretty good job of like the way they edited and filmed things of kind of trying to keep it believable in that it's the same person riding the bike as doing the acting.
Yeah, I mean, Nyquist and Shane Graham were almost the same build,
Yeah.
and so that was very similar and everything. So we'd already started to film, and then we have a scene 360 down the stairs. Ryan's like, I can't 360 down the set of stairs.
Right.
Like, dude, you do 720s and you bed, like, come on. So he's like, nah. So Chase was already up there, and we're like, all right, well, how do we do this? And Chase is like, I can't ride Nyquist's bike. I mean, and I'll show you. That's the movie bike,
Yeah.
right? So you
Chase
can't
Hawk
give
on that thing.
Yeah, you can't give Chase that bike. He'd be like, well, what am I to fucking do with this? So so had to use Chase's bike, and then what's going on here? Oh, okay. God, get out of here. Anyway, I'll just deny it.
No worries.
Fucking computer shit. Right, sorry. So what we had to do was get Chase Hawk's bike, and we actually had to go to an art store and get like that translucent wrapping paper.
Mm-hmm.
We wrapped Chase's bike up to look like Nyquist's bike, that translucent blue.
Yeah, I feel like because I knew that already going into watching it, I feel like there might have been a couple scenes where the GoPro or action cam, whatever they used on the bike, where you could maybe see that a little bit. I don't know for sure or not, though. I couldn't.
Yeah, you could if you look closely at it.
Yeah, I noticed. I thought I noticed that.
A few people commented on it. Oh, look, 1 minute he's got 4 pegs, next minute he's got 2, next minute he's got this. He's got the 4-piece bars, and then he's got the 2-piece bar. And I'm like,
you're missing the point.
Yeah, my producers told me 99% of the people that watch this movie have never seen BMX before.
Right.
So that, to me, that was my selling point. I'm like, if you're going to pick at that, okay, you missed the whole story. So, Chase Hawk could not ride Nyquist's bike, and Nyquist couldn't ride Chase's. You know what it's like. You can't ride a person's bike.
Yeah, and I coming from a video background, like I literally majored in cinematic arts in college. I like pay attention to this kind of stuff, and I tried to pick out like when I knew it was Chase Hawk doing the 360 down the stairs. I'm like, dude, they filmed this and edited it in a way that you have to know and be paying attention to be able to tell, because it happens so fast.
Exactly, and I'll tell you the wall ride. When the pinheads try and block him, that was my idea, because Nyquist was like, I can't do that, and again Chase was there, and he goes, I'll do it. Brant, it was raining that day, so wet tires hitting that smooth wall.
Sounds great.
It was we had 6 cameras on Chase, including all these GoPros and everything. We had this massive industrial heater, like drying a strip for Chase to ride to keep his tires dry. Like, so we were going back and forward, drying the concrete as much as we could. But when he landed on a wet surface. He pulled it. It's just Chase, isn't it?
Yeah.
He pulled it clean. So that was stressful. It's like the ground is almost moist and slippy.
Yep. And the way that movies are shot, I mean, they are on a schedule, and they are trying to get everything done because they only have so much time in a day. Daylight is changing throughout, and you plan things out so meticulously that's like pressure. The pressure of rain, the pressure of time. Like, all right, we only have this allotted amount of time for Chase to do this wall ride, and he has to do it in the rain.
Yep. And with location, I was in a school. Kids were in school. So we were filming some of these scenes whilst between classes, so that all the kids were in class and there was no bells ringing. And then when we had to wait for all the kids to leave the school to then start filming again. But then all the kids wanted photos, and everybody's there and all this. Like, shit, it's getting dark.
Yeah.
Because this was October in NorCal. So it was getting pretty dark. We filmed a lot of it in Petaluma. By 5:15, it's dark.
Right. Yeah. It's just tough. I was also curious too. Did the BMX rider, how is it chosen that Larry was the like reigning champion that had to be beaten?
Yeah. At the beginning, I wanted it to be Dennis Enerson.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, again, you have to improvise when you're filming, as you know.
Yep.
So, the contest is on. The script has John goes up against Dennis Enerson. That's what the script has. And so, anyway, they're at Napa Valley Skate Park, and we're having this contest and everything else. And my producer comes up to me and she goes, Mike Perenni's like the best rider here.
Yeah.
Because Mike asked me, Mike's a showman, and Mike asked me before we're filming, he said, what do you want me to do? I said, just put on a show. So Mike put on a show. He was flipping, he was whipping, he was corking, like everything was going on. And Dennis was riding, like, as he does, flow and smooth, but he wasn't throwing, it wasn't the X Games.
Mm-hmm.
So Larry, to make the contest look legit, they deleted a lot of Mike Perenni's.
That's funny.
They took Mike out, and then Larry was pretty much second spot. So they put Larry in to go up against John at the end. And I'll tell you, look, the contests that I rode that were sort of parallel referencing to, I actually got second. I didn't win.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's an amateur contest. It wasn't a pro contest. So I got second, and my producer was like, "Well, no one follows the first loser." And I'm like, what I wanted to do, Grant, is speak to the millions of kids that didn't win, because there's only one winner. And I wanted to share that part of the story, that if you give it your all, like when I got second in that contest, I felt the most amazing, because I gave it everything, and the winner won because he was the best rider. But Hollywood wants, the Karate Kid, the Rocky Balboa kind of moment.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I've been taught to be coachable, so listen. And if that's what the majority wants, then you got to go with it. You can't argue, and then the script is screwed up. So
yeah, it's unfortunate reality of making movies, but I did think that Larry did a pretty good job with his speaking roles too, though.
Didn't he? He's embarrassed about that.
No, he did good.
Dude. Awesome. I mean, that's what I wanted, and it was, it was 2016 InnerBike, and I'm going around and asking all the brands, like, give me a couple of bikes, give me some T-shirts, like, I want all the brands in this movie, and I want all the athletes that I was friends with, calling them and saying, do you want to be a part of this? It's $650 a day, and it's all SAG rates, so it's $650 a day, flights, accommodation, food, everything's covered. And so all the guys came up and were a part of it, but I wanted all the brands to be a part of it as well.
Yeah, I noticed that majorly throughout the movie, where it was just like every single spot that there could be some type of brand. I was like, holy crap, from the kid wearing the BSD shirt to the other kid who was riding having the Haro complete to the Albie stickers to all these different company stickers all over the place, to the stickers on that girl's laptop when she was sending when she sent the clip over. And I noticed that, and I was like, dang, this is the kind of thing that probably would cost so much money in sponsorship, but I'm sure it was just John just doing it.
Yeah, I reached out to all my friends in the industry, John Hova, Etnies. We were going to have Vans as the title sponsor of the contest, but there was a bit of miscommunication, I probably could say. Sadly, Steve Van Doren thought this was going to be like a freaking Nazi movie, and there's going to be all this white supremacy and hatred and everything else, and Vans didn't want to be sort of associated with that kind of. But I was trying to say it's a family feel-good movie. We all have inspirational stories, this is just mine, but I can relate to so many others and they can relate to me. The last minute, Hova goes, all right, what do you need? So got obviously all the coping stickered with Etnies, and he sent a bunch of Etnies and clothing and everything for the athletes, BSD, Demolition, Volume, Shadow, Sabrosa, you see all the brands come up at the end as well.
Yeah, it's so
I just
cool.
talked about Colony, BSD. It was just all my. Hopefully, it shows that yeah, I'm just here to promote my friends and my sport, BMX. Like I didn't want it to be Haro, all Haro. You know, John was sponsored by Haro. There was a Haro team, but and can I tell you, Scott Carroll is the coach.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the coach in the movie. Well, Scott Carroll was my influence back in the 80s. So Scott rode against Jamie Beswick, Simon Tabron, Carlo Griggs. You know, Scott was an amazing rider, but sadly in 1997, Scott took his own life.
Oh.
So I'm still friends with Scott's mum, and I asked his mum, Mary, if I could have him as if he's still alive today as a character in the movie. And so Ali Afshar plays Scott Carroll, and even dyed his hair peroxide blonde because Scott used to do that. And Mary was so thankful because she feels like her son is still alive.
That's where I get chills.
I get teary-eyed when I think about him because I certainly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our early influences are so important. Real quick here, Grant Smith's in the chat. Speaking of BSD, and he said, "What contest was that?" Talking about, I think the one where you got second.
Barrow in Furness. So it's a small, but he was there. So it was Barrow in Furness.
There you go.
So amateur contest. So, but Bestwick was there as well, and he was riding pro, and Andy Burke was in pro. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. There was mini ramp. There was the spine ramp, but the spine ramp had an actual vert, probably 9 foot. Maybe Grant will correct me. He filmed all this shit. So, but I managed to abubica that vert section as well, which was pretty cool. I don't know if anybody else abubicaed that vert part and pulled it. I didn't put my foot down, whereas 90% of the time I'm always putting my foot down. This is Capone. This is Capone. I do.
Capone. You look like a good boy.
Come on, down. Get down. He loves to talk.
He said no.
Down.
So, I think you did a fantastic job as far as BMX's representation in the movie goes. I think it was great as far as all the brands, showing Haro, showing close-ups of the bike and seeing all that stuff. The only thing, like how people say they noticed the 2 pegs, 4 pegs, 2-piece bars, whatever. The only thing I noticed was the pedals changed from the beginning to the end, but like that's normal in a period of time, changing out pedals. And that was all I could pick out.
Yeah, the original had the Lineage pedal, and then I think Nike was put on the Demolition pedal.
Mm-hmm.
Ones. Yeah. So that was, yeah. But again, as we said, like 99% of the people have never seen BMX before. And I wanted to put this in the big screen. We did have it planned for the big screen. Yeah. But I wanted to introduce BMX to so many people that had never seen it before. So sadly, yeah.
Sadly, it didn't get to go into theaters.
I was going to say, sadly, COVID hit, and we had 650 cinemas booked in America. Don't know if you would know, but when you're doing a movie, you have to buy the cinemas. You have to buy the seat. And then when someone buys a seat, that's when you get your credits back.
Yeah.
So we booked out 650 cinemas across America. So you can imagine that was like $6 million. And then the making of the movie and everything else, COVID hit. Our company folded, so there's no more Forest Films. It's gone. And I was going to get 2% royalties, and I got $1 for that movie.
Wow.
And I still got the check, $1 uncashed.
As you should. That's a bummer. Can people still watch it on Amazon? Like, is it?
It's on Apple TV. But there's like 5 countries can see this because it's like distribution of a bike. You need the country to actually have the distribution. Canada still hasn't got it.
Wow. So people literally have to use a VPN if they want to watch this and they're outside of the 5 countries.
Exactly. So, look, I just want people to watch it. And I actually had a Zoom call yesterday with this powerful man that he works in the prisons. He works in over 100 prisons around America, and he wants to show this movie in every single prison.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's what I want. It's free, right? It's free. So I just want prisons, juvie halls. I'd love schools to be able to show this.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so educational that you can be anything you want to be, and be around good people, and you can leave the past in the past. We all go through shit, so leave it there.
Yeah, man. Do you feel ever like the things that have happened to you in your life were almost meant to be to get you to the point where you are today and have Haro in the movie and all these inspirational things you've done?
Honestly, 100%. And some people, they've read my book, and I talk about being sexually molested at 5 years old. I talk about my dad throwing me in the fire at 3 years old. Talk about eating out of trash cans as a kid and everything else. And people are like, oh, I'm so sorry you went through that. And I'm like, I'm not sorry. I'm glad I went through it because I survived it and I'm here today. A lot of people that are abused as children, sadly, 40 to 50, the suicide rate is so high. And, I'm just, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself and of what I've achieved. And I'm glad I'm still here. And I've got amazing friends all over the world, and it's all from BMX. So I'm not John Craig. That was my biological name, not John McCord, as it is. So we changed my biological name to keep all the safety aspects of the story. Didn't want getting sued from a family member or anything else, so they changed the last names there, but kept the Büültjens name, my mum and dad's name, and kept Mariana and Eldridge, my parents' names. So, probably gone off on a tangent there, I think. But anyway.
It's okay. You answered the question. I mean, just feeling like some of the things you went through in life were meant to be to get you to where you are.
Yeah, and that's why, that's why I said I'm glad I went through it, the highs and lows. I was even talking to my brother-in-law, my ex-wife's brother, yesterday. We were talking about doing a project together. It's my ex-wife's brother, and it shows that I haven't burnt bridges with people. You can even Google my name, and there's nothing negative that would actually come up online. Apart from there's one, the Daily Express, which is a UK newspaper. I think it's the Daily Express, and the title was Scottish BMX star claims he was sexually assaulted by Princess Margaret. I was pinched, my ass was pinched by the princess when I was serving her vegetables and potatoes at a ball. I was a waiter and I was serving vegetables, and she pinched my bum. And it blew it out of proportion that I said she sexually assaulted me. I'm like, come on. So that's the only negative thing online. Everything else is pretty positive because I've become a positive man, for sure. I used to get an angry little bastard, and Grant will tell you as well, I used to throw my bike and get pissed. And he's like, he would always call me like a stress, a few stress kings, which was BSD video. So it was pretty sweet.
That's funny. Maybe we can get Grant in here one day and he can tell a John story.
Oh, Jesus. He thought, do you want to hear one quickly?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the first factory contest was 1989 in Dundee. And so Dundee's on the east coast of Scotland, north of Edinburgh. This old warehouse, so obviously it's abandoned. It's just cold. And so my friend Alan Smith said, okay, Richie, you're staying with me. Grant Smith, you're staying with John, but he's gay. So Grant was 15 at the time, and Grant's like, fuck that, I'm not staying there, I'm scared. Kids were 15, 16, 17 years old, and so he stayed in the warehouse, freezing cold, found like a sleeping bag and just slept under the ramp. And then the next night, he's like, I'm just going to risk it. I'm going to John's house. And that's how we became friends. And I was there with Grant when he met his wife, Rachel, who's also his partner in BSD. We were partying in Aberdeen in 1991. And Rachel and her friends were actually like 14 or 15. They were underage. And we got invited to this party. We went to the house. The police got called. Grant and I jumped out, like it was almost 2 stories high. We jumped out the window onto the main street and ran across the road and watched everybody else coming out with the cops. And it was pretty funny. We got some good stories.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. Maybe one day I'll get him in here, get you two in here together. How fun would that be?
I mean, the good thing is with Grant as well, even though he hasn't left Scotland, like to live in another country, he's travelled all over the world, but his accent is the same. You know, a lot of Scots, you can't really understand them because they're talking real quick.
Like
So,
Robin Williams' golf skit when he does. I.
oh God, 18 fucking hoes! Yeah.
That is one of the best comedy bits of all time.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and you know, even talking about Robin Williams, we all thought he was the happiest man in the world,
True.
but he was so miserable inside. And so, you know, yeah, we should all reach out to our friends and just be like, are you good? And since I got left from Haro, I mean, yeah, Pete Augustine, Dave Volker, Bob as well. Like, so many people have reached out and said, are you okay? And I actually said, I'm in the best mental state in my mind I've ever been. Like, I'm actually in a really good spot right now because I feel like a massive lift has been taken off me. And this is 50 years old. This is the next chapter of my life. So I'm excited.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's good that you come out it positively and like you've found a way to continue doing what you were loving the most about Haro with
Yeah.
other people and be able to include Haro at the same time. Like you can't beat that. You cut out all the other stuff and just leave what you wanted.
You have to take the politics out of it. It wasn't personal. It was and I know a lot of people in the bike industry have lost their jobs quite recently.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where do we not? I mean, even Haro wanted like more of a salesman. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, I was phoning shops and stuff at the end before I left, just researching how can I help you? Like I would phone Flip, I would phone, you know, the dealers all over the country. I'm like, how can I better serve you? Like, I know it's tough times. The shops are flooded with stock. So instead of just going here, take more. And some of the big brands, not just in BMX, but some of the big brands would just flood the shops up. And you're like, how can I pay this bill? So, and I saw a post recently that a retailer posted, we are now competing with the wholesalers.
Jeez.
We're now competing with the wholesalers because wholesalers have had to discount product.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was talking to Moeller that was a few weeks ago, down at Gary Young's contest. And Chris is like, well, who's paying for all these extra storage containers and units and everything else that you need to pay for? Like, you need the stock gone. So I get why I was let go, and I'm never going to slander or badmouth Haro because I still feel Haro's my brand. I mean, I treated it like it was my own company. I watched budgets. I mean, I was like the most frugal man in that business, I think. Like, I just wouldn't spend unless I could make it back tenfold. So if I was going to mold, I'd be like, okay, well, this mold is going to cost 10 grand, but I guarantee this is going to add at least $100,000 in sales to open this mold. So that's how I thought of it, and that's how I treated it. And that's how I'll treat the brands I'll be working with as well. Like, okay, look, the bending tooling is going to cost $3,000, but we can make 1,000 frames.
Yep.
So it's worth doing. So I'll always treat it like it's my own business, and no matter where I am, I've always been like that.
Yeah.
It's probably from my childhood not having anything, to then respecting money. I mean, I remember I got pocket money, and it was £2 a week, and a Star Wars figure was £1.50. So I would buy the Star Wars figure, save that 50 pence, and then buy another Star Wars figure the second week. But the third week I could buy 2
Oh yeah.
at £3.
Right.
So I learned early on to budget as a kid, which I don't know where I learned that from, honestly. It was probably just I never had anything, so I had to protect it, even that 50 pence.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense logically. That's where it would come from.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted to ask too, what's your BMX life looks like today, riding whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Oceanside, North County, California, and my local skate park is MLK. So I go down there every so often. I mean, I'm nervous now because I don't have medical insurance. My medical insurance lapsed after leaving Haro, so I've never had to worry about going to ride before. And now I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So I start getting some money coming in to my business, then I'll take out my medical. And I spoke to my dentist just before New Year, and he went, I mean, I've got like 12 teeth replaced. I've got implants, veneers, crowns, all this stuff. And he goes, look, you just have to keep your dental hygiene going. So take out a plan with us that gives you 2 cleans, gives you x-rays. You don't have to take out thousands of dollars a year on dental because you've not got many teeth left. They're all fake. So getting that kind of advice was great. And so I'm really looking for the future. But you know, a lot of the guys meet at Hamels down in San Diego. So that was a flatland spot back in the 80s. Dave Norrie went down there, and you know, there's a lot of legends from Volker and all that, Augustine. They would all ride there in like 84, 85, 86, R.L. Osborne, and people still go down there on Sundays and just meet up. So it's a little flatland sesh. I don't really flatland, but I can do a decade, that's about it. So but it's good to just be out and hang with the guys. So I'll go down there every few Sundays, but I need to get back on it. I need to ride more. I pumped my tires up the other day, so the bike is ready to roll.
There you go. What tricks are you doing if you're riding a mini ramp today?
I mean, I always start off with a rock walk drop in. That was Scott Carroll's trick. So, and that was one of the first sort of lip trick kind of that I learned. I can still do decade drop ins and stuff like that. But on the concrete, I prefer doing that on wood, not on concrete. I need to do another 540 Canadian nose pick. I used to do them all the time, but right on the coping. So 180 in, almost like Osato did in the sub rails. But I've never done it on the sub rail. I'd always do it on the coping. But I want to do that on a wooden ramp. I don't want to hit the concrete. My body's hurting just thinking about it.
I know where there's a perfect ramp you could do it on at Ray's.
Oh, at Ray's, yeah?
Yeah, and I know somebody who would love to learn that trick with you doing it.
Damn.
Yeah, man. Come ride Ray's.
I learned that trick in, 94 was the first time I pulled it.
Wow, that's a crazy trick, doing that on the coping or the edge.
On the coping, it's 180 into the Canadian, and you're almost pivoting, like you're sort of 45 degrees, and then you're 270 out of it.
Yeah.
So quick, and it's so precise. I think the last one I did was probably 5 years ago at, I think it was about 5 years ago at Woodward in Tehachapi. So I haven't done it, but Woodward's coping is like that fat. Might have to. Actually, Steve Caballero phoned me just before Christmas. He wants to go up to Woodward and learn a backflip on a bike.
Oh.
So I said, Coco is going to teach him. So I was like, all right, I'll come up, because I still haven't got a full flip before. I've done fakey backflips and landed in my head. I've never pulled a backflip.
Yeah, me neither. That trick.
I know, it's like, it's a circus trick, I totally get it, but it's my mind. I can do backflips off walls, I can do front flips off stairs, but the backflip on the bike, just getting past that blind spot, I'm like, I let go of the bike the whole time. And it was funny when I went to Pennsylvania in 2021, they had a reunion and Nyquist was there teaching me how to backflip, and I'm like, fuck, and I keep getting the blind spot and just letting the bike go and keep letting it go. This little 11-year-old girl did a backflip in front of me.
Well, there you go.
I'm like, God.
Well, they say, like my buddy who learned them when we were young said it's the easiest hard trick that there is.
Everyone tells me it's easier than a 360.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just scary.
Yeah, it is. It's just that blind spot. I mean, I was even, no, I don't want to say it on here.
Don't do it.
What's that?
I said, don't do it.
I know, I was like, I was going to say something. I went, no, I'm not going to say it. Because we're going to try it on another apparatus first to get that blind spot and then try it on a bike.
Oh, you
I'm
already
not going
done
to say
said
that
it.
because, no.
You already said it. Now we know.
On my roller skates.
There you go. Uh, so we've talked a little bit about the industry side of things and how kind of things are in a weird, bad spot right now. What do you think will be the thing that lifts BMX out of that? If you had to guess.
I mean, like, honestly, and I've said it before, is like support the brands. Support, like, please buy the product. Don't expect it for free. I mean, our favorite times in BMX, for me anyway, and I believe a lot of people, was the early 90s. There was no sponsorship. You had to buy your bike, you had to buy your parts. I mean, in Scotland, we had to buy, like, if we bought a gyro cable, we would buy like 5 at a time from America. Standard brought out the longer axles to fit the Super Pros. So we buy a bulk of them at the same time. You'd have to hold your stash up, and your friends would break a gyro cable and they'd be like, oh, can I get one? I'm like, dude, it's my last one. Mine could fray and snap. It's like, you need that backup, but you'd help your friends. So honestly, all I ask is, like, for the community, for the BMX community, to support the industry. I mean, it's great. A lot of guys hold on to their bikes from 10, 15, 20 years and they're stoked that they still have that old bike. But go get a second one. Like, I'm just saying, the industry, as I said, I was hoping the movie would come out to the cinema and then it would open to a global audience and more people would be buying BMX bikes. That was the whole reason for doing this. Plus, obviously, the foster and adoption side of things, inspiring kids that you're the chosen one, you're not abandoned, you're not rejected, you're chosen. And that's more important. So it's like here with BMX, support it. Like, stop asking the brands for free shit, because the brands need your help. They've been helping so many riders for all the years. This is the time to show the brands that we're here to support you. That's my 2 cents for sure. Hopefully someone gets it.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And my addition to the part of the people who hold on to their bikes and ride them for 10, 15 years is that is not safe. Go get a set of forks, handlebars, and a stem right now.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would tell the guys all the time, like Dennis Emerson. I mean, I would tell the guys, you have to switch your fork out every 90 days. It's Dennis. And then it's great to give your old parts away, but I don't want a kid snapping the head tube off because you've hairline fractured it. And I'm not just saying Dennis, I'm saying any pro rider. It's great to give your old parts away, but if a kid gets hurt on it, metal fatigues. Metal needs to bend and breathe. So if you've already beaten the shit out of it, switch it out and get a new one. It's like a helmet. If you hit your head, a motorbike helmet or, any helmet really, if you fracture that, you need to get a new helmet.
Yep.
The same as your bike, like, even if you don't need it, still keep your mid-school bike, but maybe get something new as well. The geometry's so much better, they're lighter, the bars are actually better for your back.
Yeah, you're gonna not have back pain.
Oh my god, 7.25, 7.5 handlebars.
Can you imagine?
23-inch wide, so you could just do the wee bar spins and shit. Like, I don't think BMX will ever go back there. I think that was a big mistake. I mean, you look at Chris Doyle back then. I mean, his back, he's on the bike, his legs are here and his back's there. Like,
yep.
You want to have a 10-inch bar. I ride 8.5, but if you're 6'3", you want a 10-inch or 9.5-inch bar and a top load step. I mean, I still see some guys riding front load, and I rode front load for many years. But getting that top load and then getting the taller stack height and getting a higher bar, it's so much better for your posture and better for your lower back.
Oh, yeah. And I've said this a million times on here, but I have a set of bars that were my first bars on the complete bike. I cut them to 21 and a half. I didn't know why.
Did you have brakes on there? Or
Oh
was brake?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So they were on the bend?
I just had one, but yeah, it was on the bend.
Yep.
I
Wow.
don't know
And I mean,
why.
back then, your grips were like 135 mil. Now
Yeah.
they're like 155, 165.
Yeah, it was just not good for riding bikes. Great for bar
Uh,
spins, but
yeah.
not good for pretty much anything else.
Nah. Wow. And you kept that bar?
I still have them. Yeah, I'm like you. I keep everything. Like I will never get rid of a frame that I rode just because I want to one day be 51 and hanging them on my wall. Like I remember when I rode this in 2007.
Yep. I mean, it's funny, like when I was clearing out all my stuff at Haro, like I found my old original knee savers, which we based off the new Lineage knee saver,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all welded, both. So basically, the lower crossbar for the stem, both sides are all fully re-welded. The basically the curvature. Well, you would always bend your bar, so you would bend it back up, and then what we used to do, I'm not sure if you did, I know a lot of guys did, is you would get your threaded axles and then like put them onto a stair, bend it slightly, and then smash the axle down so you can actually stop your bar from bending.
Oh my God! Like in the tubing.
We used to put, and I've got a pair of bars that are in my garage. I found them when I was unloading all my stuff from Haro. It's my original knee savers from '88, and you can feel the crimping on the side from when I've smashed the axles in to straighten it and hold it tight so they don't bend.
Oh my. See, this is why I feel like people like you need to have a YouTube channel just so you can be like, all right, check out this. I'm gonna talk about just this for this video, and then anybody can see it anytime, and you can look back on it 20 years from now too.
I mean,
That's
that's like honestly, a bicycle isn't built, like seriously, no matter what you buy today, a bicycle isn't built to put through what we do.
right.
So every bike is going to break if you're fucking hard on it, like I was. And I remember when I broke my Haro Sport, I broke it in 3 weeks. I cracked it around the seat tube. And it's like, I looked at the warranty back then, and obviously I bought it from the States, from I think Trend, which is now Empire. So I bought it, and it was 90-day warranty, but it took like 3 months to get to the house. So the warranty was already gone.
Yeah.
And now it's lifetime warranty and stuff. I'm like, nothing is lifetime. Even Apple is doing all these updates because Apple doesn't break.
Yeah.
So they do all these updates so they can pretty much crash your product so you buy a new phone or a new computer. But the bike industry, it's like, why do we shouldn't be giving out all these warranties? I'm sorry guys, but warranties aren't increasing the industry or helping the industry because the makers in Taiwan will not warranty most of those frames. If it's over a year old, they won't warranty it. So the brand has to replace that.
Yeah. Comes out of
And
their
we're
pocket.
losing out.
I hadn't really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not helping anyone. And so I'm glad I still have all my cracked frames. And I'm glad I supported the industry as I did. I think I got my 89 Bashguard bike. I was grinding the Bashguard and the plate ripped out. Now, when you look at that, they were tiny little 4 mil bolts. You're talking your body weight, you're talking the bike, and you're sliding on concrete. Of course, it's going to rip out of the frame.
Right.
So it's the same bolts they had for bottle cages. If you look at your mountain bike or road bike, those little bidden cage mounts, that's what was on the Bashguard. So I snapped the Bashguard off, I ripped it out of the frame, and I contacted Shiners, which was the distributor in the UK, and they goes, oh, that guard's there for stone chips. I'm like, have you seen the latest ad in BMX Plus or whatever? It's like, he's grinding the concrete. You can see the concrete spitting off. And so they gave me a black frame for $100, £100. It was pretty much their cost price. So they said, look, we can't warranty it, but we'll give you another frame at our cost. So that's how I ended up with two 89 Masters, the chrome one and the black one, because the black one was a semi-warranty, but it wasn't really. It was a warranty replacement.
Yeah, crash replacement.
I think a lot of people, okay, you want a warranty, well, maybe we should all be doing crash replacements. Look, the bike isn't designed for that. But what I'm willing to do is give you another frame at my cost price or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, at least no one's losing out.
It's a fair argument, I would say.
I don't know if I'm going to get hate mail or whatever.
No, I think people can understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Uh, Along those same lines, though, I was curious too what you think younger riders need to hear and see or know about in BMX.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I was talking to actually this guy about in the prisons and everything. We had a long Zoom yesterday. I was saying one thing that I'm proud of is the young kids I helped early days, like Logan Martin, went on to win gold in the Olympics, and I was his first bike sponsor with Pilgrim. And he, you know, a lot of these kids that grow up aren't really educated in school, so be around people that can educate you. Logan himself invested his money, so he bought a house, he has his beautiful life and everything else. The up and coming kids, I wish we could teach them more about investing in your future. I didn't care about my future either, and most 16-year-olds don't. But to get in and buy property at such an early age in your 20s is a massive thing. So if you're becoming the next pro in BMX, invest your money.
Yeah, I just so people know about it too. I did a podcast with Dorito, Jason Purse, who's in the financial world now, about exactly that, setting yourself up for the future after BMX.
Totally. I mean, you can still live the life every single day, but I mean, you know, through my divorce, I lost the house, I lost my daughter, I lost all this stuff, and I had to start. When I came to America in 2012, it was me starting all over again. But again, I don't regret it. You know, you lose it, you can remake it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've done here. It took me like 8 years selling my bike collection, but I now actually own property in California, and it's so hard to buy here in California. So, yeah, that's the biggest thing I would say. And honestly, support your friends. Like, you know, that's one thing I loved about BMX. It's like you could be on the deck and your friend gives you a fist pump as you're rolling in because he wants you to be the best rider you can be on the day.
Yep.
And it's the same as these kids. It's like, you know, you're growing up. Don't be selfish. Don't be selfish with your time either. Take a stand for another human being. Like, that's so important, I believe, to being a decent human being in life. And it is all about paying it forward. I mean, I've helped so many people over the years, and now when I need help, which I've refused because I really don't need help, but people have reached out and said, what do you need? Can I help you? My neighbor even, dude, let me give you some money, let me help you with your mortgage and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, friends in the industry reaching out, and it's just because I've been there for them, and it comes around full circle. It was like the whole thing about watching ET and Bob Haro, and then I'm the brand manager of Haro 30 years after I saw the movie, and everything comes full circle. So yeah, definitely don't knock people down to get to the top, because then you're going to be surrounded by those kind of people that are going to knock you down to get to the top. Inspire people, lift them up. A great leader will lift you up. He won't put you down.
Couldn't say it better. What for the young people and the kids who are getting into BMX, what do you think is like the must see? Like, what do you have to watch if you're just getting into BMX?
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of Matt Hoffman there. I mean, I was going to say head first. That was fucking brilliant. Agroman was amazing, but head first. If I may say, so I'm going to try and answer this question in the most polite way, but today's rider is missing, I feel, the style of like a Chris Doyle. You know, like BMX, and I'm not dissing anyone in any way, but it's almost irrelatable. It's so fast. Quad tail whips and all this crazy shit going on, and then you throw the bars, you're 2 inches off landing. there's so much stuff going on that kids can't relate to it. And I think, again, it's just me, but I think that could turn a lot of kids off. That's why they'll get on a scooter, because they can easily ride it.
Yeah.
And, so it's all about being relatable. So a new kid coming in, like, it's hard to say. I'm not trying to say, slow the progression down in any way, not at all. I'm just saying, I feel we need to be more relatable in BMX so that kids can actually see it. I remember, let me tell you, just to point out something, like Mike Gray, amazing rider, Canadian rider, rides for Haro.
Yeah.
He's doing all these videos, edits, everything on Instagram. And when he came to Haro, probably 2016, 2017, I said, Mike, do you think you could bunny hop this 48-pound Dave Meara Pro model? And he bunny hopped it. And I said, all right, could you bunny hop Marston it? And he's like, my back. Anyway, I filmed it. He posted it. It was one of it. And he did the slow-mo with the bar. So it was a bunny hop bar. And that was it. And he said it was one of his most liked views on Instagram at that time.
That's funny.
Because it was relatable. Kids could see you bunny hop, you throw the bars, you catch it, you land. And that struck a chord with me that we need to be relatable. So these new kids coming in, I would love to see these kids doing like a Larry Edgar as well, the way he rides, Chris Fox. With Dennis and everything. I like that kind of riding. It's still keeping the core of BMX. There's nothing more beautiful than a click turn down. It's just, I think that's one of the most amazing tricks. Or a completed inverted flatty. Like, there's just the simplicity, and it is an art form. That's the way I look at it, that you could ride effortlessly, riding like that. And I would personally say I would notice you a lot more than things I can't even comprehend unless I slow the video down.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what you're getting at here is kind of just finding who you are through your riding and being yourself, rather than trying to jump into the race of doing as much as you can possibly do, unless that is like who you are.
Yeah, I mean, and it reminded me just then, is like when I arrived at Haro, I said to the owners, be Haro. Stop trying to be every other brand.
Mm-hmm.
Be Haro. So as you as a human being, be you. Stop trying to be a clone of someone else. And you can be inspired by someone else's skill or flow or whatever, but be you. And that's how you're definitely going to get a lot more noticeable.
I mean, look at me. I still got the same haircut I had in 2006, so there's that.
Yeah.
And I hit hard on everything I do about just being yourself in every aspect of it.
Totally. I mean, Brent, I'm coming back to the Vegas when I met you, because I remember the haircut, and you were on your own.
Yeah.
You were on, and I'm just wondering, so how, because it was an industry thing, like, were you working in the industry then, or what was it?
So, I ride for Alienation, still do. I did back then, and I took a photo at Ray's. My girlfriend took a photo of me at Ray's doing this ride up the ramp, grab a rafter, swing out, swing back, grab. She took the picture of it, and they used that picture on a display at InnerBike. And when I found that out, we were both instantly like, well, looks like we're going to InnerBike. So like nobody flew me there, nobody took me there. What happened was I asked the local bike shop around here that I ride for, Brimstone Bicycles. I asked them if they could just get me like in, because shops can get people in. You don't have to pay that $500 fee if you're an outside person. So they got me like in, and then I literally just went to go and see myself on the display, and then meet whoever I could, meet and talk to, and walked around and came across you.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, because it all starts flowing back now. So yeah, it's pretty mad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things like nobody was gonna take me there, but I felt like I needed to be there, so I just made it happen.
Yeah.
And what was, I've never really talked about this side of things, but we booked the trip to Vegas and InnerBike, and I mean it's an expensive trip, you know. You gotta buy plane tickets and everything, and I think the next week I got laid off from the job that I had.
Oh, fuck.
So this was like, you know, a good job. I was getting paid pretty good money and getting laid off, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I have this insanely expensive trip I'm about to go on and I just got basically fired." And
Damn.
yeah, I just looked at it like, well, like obviously it's happening for a reason, and like going to Interbike in Vegas is an opportunity that I'm just going to make the most out of.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it sucks about the job, but again, it's another chapter in your life, and then it motivates you to take the next step.
Yeah, I mean I'm not bummed about it at all because it got me to where I'm at, and I vowed after that I will never have another like full-time day job thing where I have to go in every single day, 8 to 5 or whatever it is, ever again.
Yeah.
And I haven't.
Nice.
It's just
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm glad to just be me, be my own boss, choose my hours, and live the life I love instead of working the grind. And yeah, it's just so repetitive. I'm glad that every day can be completely different.
Yeah, man. A thing that really has stuck with me that somebody said to me is the guy who owns the trails that I dig out here. He said a comment. We were talking about something years ago, and he said, "Make your vocation your vacation."
Yep.
That sticks with me every single day when I do what I do, because that, I mean, who doesn't want that as a BMX rider?
So, I mean, I do. I say I haven't worked since 1994.
Yeah.
I've been in the industry. I got into the bike industry in '94. So 29 years. It doesn't feel like I've worked because you got to do what you love. And people say, "Oh, well, we're not all that lucky." Well, you're not given luck. You got to go out and create it.
Exactly.
So, what do you want? And I wanted to work in the industry. I never thought I always wanted to work for Haro, but I never thought I'd have been the global brand manager for 10 years. So yeah, you got to create it and believe it and put it out there in the universe because everything is possible. And I always say as well, stop talking yourself out of shit, talk yourself into shit.
Mm-hmm.
Talk yourself into it. It's like if you're dropping in and you're hitting a spine for the first time, like, oh, I'm going to case. You're going to case.
Yep. That's when you crash. That's when you
Right.
do that.
And it's funny, I always parallel reference bike tricks to motivational speaking. And it's like, you know, if you're doing that with your riding, you're going to crash. If you're doing that in life, you're going to crash in life.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, and I see it on Facebook so much, like people just repetitive. I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm that. Well, get out of where you are and move to where you want to be. Be around the five most successful, inspirational, powerful people that you know.
Yep.
Surround yourself with those people, and they do rub off on you. If you want to be around, you know, people that are just depressed all the time and pulling, you can't be around that because you can't help them. One of them have to be around five positive.
Yeah.
You basically rub off and really hopefully heal this planet because there's just so much negativity out there.
Yeah, man. You can't move forward in a car unless you shift gears. If you stay in
Right.
you can't move faster without shifting gears. You can't expect anything to change unless you make a change at the same time. Like, yeah, when I got fired, I could have just went out and found another full-time job and, you know, what's the word, settled and just did whatever people do in life, and but I made that decision that that's not what's going to happen. That's when I really dedicated myself to doing what I do on here. And same with you and Haro. Like, you could have just, you know, given up or whatever and gone and used your references and skills to get some other kind of job, but no, you started a consulting company that's going to allow you to continue doing your favorite part of the job you had.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I'll be driven by the consumers.
Yep.
what they want. Let me create what you want, you know, and hopefully they see it's not just looking in the catalog and choosing these parts. Every part needs to be created. And, you know, John DeBruin at Hutch, I mean, his Hutch Aerospeed cranks are so hard to make. Profile was making them. But if I'm going to do a complete bike, well, take if out of the equation, when we make the complete bike, we need to make the cranks in Taiwan. It's so expensive to be shipping from America, then claiming your duties to bring them back in because this part was American made. And it's like, let's keep it all in Taiwan. So, but doing stuff like that, getting that aerospeed, that's why I'm off to Wisconsin on the 24th to go and visit with John for a couple of days and set up all the Hutch stuff. Because I need to feel it, I need to touch it, I need to create something. I never rode a Hutch. Friends rode Hutchies. Woody Itzen rode Hutchies. Dominguez rode Hutchies, but I never did. So I need to do my research to really get into the nitty gritty of it to create products that people are like, wow, I want to ride that.
I mean, you're essentially describing the fact that you're an artist with this.
I know, it's like when I look at these bikes, I mean, that's why my house is full of bikes and skateboards.
Yeah.
And it's all art. And my girlfriend's like, this looks like a museum. Like, well, I mean, the middle, it's a townhome, so it's 3 stories, but the first to second floor is the skateboards, and then the second to third floor is all my bikes. But that's a 20-foot wall, so it's huge going up the stairs, but it's the timeline of my own personal bikes. And then the middle floor has got no BMX, but it has a beautiful photo Sandy Carson took of Scotland, and he gave me that. Brad McDonald gave me this one of Vic.
Yeah.
I've got all these housewarming gifts from amazing people. I've got, Hoffman over there. There's a picture over there with Volker, Pereni, Augustin, but it's art. It's not just putting photographs of your friends on your wall.
Yeah.
There's actually pieces of art. I mean, this is art. Like, so many people say, what? Like, because I think this is 5 by 3, 5 foot by 3 foot.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, where did you get that? And it's like, well, I've got a friend, Brad McDonald.
That's awesome.
So it's cool to see BMX as an art, to see the bikes as art. And I appreciate everyone that's in the industry, and I appreciate everyone that supported me to keep my little dreams going along. And hopefully they'll continue for not just 5 years, but a lot longer than that.
Yeah, and that's funny that we're talking about art and that got brought up, because one of the last things I have on my list here is to talk about art and drawing, because that was brought up in those podcasts. You mentioned like, oh yeah, I used to draw a lot and I should get back into it. Then watching the movie, it's like art is a huge part of the movie and drawing in there. And personally for me, art was like a giant thing in school as a way to not have to do a foreign language or band or choir, then found out I was good at it. So like it's what put me into the path of videos in college and everything that I did. So I'm just curious if there's any updates in the art world for you.
I know, it's crazy. So the last piece of art I did was Pink Floyd The Wall, and that was 8 foot by 4 foot, and it was in my bedroom, and it was just right across the wall. And everyone that came to visit, I'd get them all to sign the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So it was if you've seen Pink Floyd The Wall, the album cover, you open it up and it's a big double-page spread. So that was the last piece I did. So since the movie came out, and was it last year? It might have been last year or the year before, but I went over to Caballero's house because on a Tuesday night, he has art night at his house. And Big Island, Mike Castillo came over as well. So I met up with Big Island, and there was a few pro skaters there and everything. And it was a good atmosphere, and everyone's just doing their art. I'm trying to remember this guy, Paul. Paul does this. You might know him. He was a pro skater. But he does this art that you can't tell. It's all by pencil, and you can't tell if it's a photograph or if it's actually a drawing. The way he does this art is just unbelievable. I wish I could remember Paul's name. I could look on Instagram, but his art. So I'm just like, damn, I'm around all these amazing artists. I'm like, I'm just going to have a drink right now. And I remember even Big Island was doing a custom pair of Vans shoes for one of his friends, painting them all and everything. So it was cool. I'd love to get back into art because for me, like living in Scotland, when I wasn't riding my bike, I was drawing, I was doing art, and it was my expression.
Yeah.
Letting it out there. You know, I had a desk and everything with an ink pen and all that shit in my bedroom. So that was my outlay back then. So yeah, it's still on the agenda. I need to get back into it for sure. Haven't done it since I was 16, so it's been a few years.
Well, what I would say is I've kind of come into the realization that like the bikes that you're creating are there.
Yeah.
It might not be drawing per se, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you're drawing in the process of making these bikes.
Yeah, I doodle, and then I have to get engineering drawings and everything done. But I know exactly what I want and what measurements and angles and bottom bracket height. Like, I know it to a T. Yeah, I mean, and then recreating. I remember the first project I worked on at Haro was the Vans Master. So it was 2013, and it says on the down tube, Haro Freestyler. Now, the word freestyler back in the day was written by Bob Haro. So he wrote freestyler, and it was a ballpoint pen. Well, the paper would let the ink sort of seep into it, and there was all these imperfections.
Yeah.
So the original art files were imperfections were on it. Then it was digitalized, and so when I was actually Michael DeWitt, he was working at Vans at the time, and I think he's maybe went back. Michael came down to Haro, and I sat with him and I said, look, here's an original sticker, and this is what we need to do for this Vans Master, because he was doing the artwork for the Vans Master. And he was like, wow, you're a freak. And I went, you know, the little dip here on the top of the T, like it's a bit bleeding here, and then there's a bubble here. We went through every single letter to make sure it was right. Obviously, we scanned the decal, but that's what we had to do. And I'm sure Moller did the same to recreate the pitchfork decal and everything else. And Moliterno told me he did. He basically scanned and redid the lengthy, the shorty, the STA, all those graphics, because you had to recreate it, because they were all on floppy disks back then.
Right.
How do you remake it? You can't remake the original, so you have to get it as close as possible. So the freak in me wanted to put every single little imperfection in there. I didn't want it to look digitalized. I wanted it to look like the original.
I love that, because that's being an artist at its core, you know. It's your expression of what's in your head that you're trying to get out into the world, and you will not let it be anything else but what you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, and most people don't look that close to the decal to understand that kind of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you do and you have it, you're like, oh, well, that freestyler graphic was done before John got there, and it was after Bob Haro. And this, with the bleeding, is definitely John. That's his influence. He's put that back onto Haro.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
I even had to tell Bob when we were doing a ride out last year. We did basically a 40th anniversary ride out for Bob in the Haro Freestyler. And I was like, no, dude, you've got the digital version of Freestyler. We need to get this one.
You got the wrong one. Bob. You got the wrong one.
Dude.
What
like, oh, shit, really?
Do you realize who you are? You can't be on this.
Yeah, I get a wee bit emotional as well, knowing that you know, I'm a consultant for Bob as well. Like I'm starting to help him out on future projects and stuff like that, and we're going to work on something else in the future. So it's amazing to work with a lot of the people that inspired you, and then they turn around and say, you inspire me. And it's like, fuck, dude, I mean, what have I done? But yeah, I've put a lot of smiles on people's faces, so I'm happy about that.
That's the best thing ever, man. That is the best thing about BMX is when you have your heroes and the people who've inspired you, and then you not only get to become friends with them, but then you have things like that happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, I remember someone said, never meet your heroes.
That's a lie.
And I'm like, dude, my friends are my fucking heroes. Like, and it's like even when you work in Hollywood and stuff, if you're meeting some of these big actors, treat them like this.
Yep.
They're human beings. The acting gig is a job. So don't be like, oh my God, you're such and such. Can I get a selfie and all this? It's like, treat them like a normal human being, like a normal conversation, and they'll have time for you.
Yep.
And okay, so do you want to hear something really embarrassing?
I mean, how could I say no?
So when we're about to film the movie, Chris Bridges, Ludacris, read the script. His manager read it and said, I want in this movie. Chris asked him the movie. My producer phoned me up and goes, we got Ludacris. And I'm like, who's that?
Oh, I've got one like this for you too.
I'm like, what? And then I had to Google him. Oh, that's who it is.
Dude, that is amazing. I actually have a couple of these. So, mine aren't on the scale of Ludacris, but the first one is I was riding an indoor skate park with my buddy Sponge, just half hour from our house. So we didn't expect, anybody to be there. But we're
Yeah.
sitting on the deck where you can see the door to enter the skate park. And all of a sudden, I just remember him like kind of freaking out and being like, "Is that Chris Doyle?" And my response is the same as yours. Who?
Oh no!
I didn't even know who Chris Doyle was, man. And it's, but it's because I grew up making videos instead of watching videos. So
Right.
I had no knowledge, and that's sometimes the beauty of what I get to do here, where I get to talk to someone like you or Muller, and like I don't know everything I should know, so I get to learn it from the
Yeah.
people directly. So that's just awesome.
That's so great.
Yeah, it was a somewhat embarrassing one. I had another one that's similar to that at Swamp Fest the one year.
Yep.
Brock Rayford was there riding the trails, and he walks by and he's like, "Oh, what's up, Brent?" And I'm like,
Oh no!
"No, it gets worse." I was like, "Oh, hey man, it's great to meet you in person finally." And he turns around and looks at me and goes, "Brent, we've ridden together." Because he came to Ray's with the Odyssey team one time, and my dumbass completely forgot and was like, "Yeah, Brock Rayford, it's great to meet you, even though we've ridden together."
Shit. I mean, that's bad. That is bad.
The worst part of it was that he's like, "I know you're internet famous and everything," and I'm just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go home now." It was just
Oh, that's brilliant.
so I make you feel better about your Ludacris.
Treating each other as equals, and everyone, like you're doing amazing, and a lot of people look up to you. So keep doing what you're doing
Thank you.
because you're an inspiration yourself.
I try to always live through the like mantra of never knowing who's watching. You just
Yep.
I've felt like this for a long time where you never know who's paying attention to what you're doing, so you always want to give like who you are and your best foot forward because you just don't know who's going to be influenced by what you're doing at any given moment.
Oh, exactly. I mean, like when you told me we were going to be live today, I'm like, oh shit. I have to be careful with the language. I'm trying to be PG as much as possible.
You're okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's just as I said. Like, I mean, I've got nothing to hide, and I mean, I do also say I'm an open book because I have a book written, so it's got everything in it. But yeah, that's bad. That the book is bad. The movie's good. The book is R-rated, fucking 18 plus. So I talk about everything. I talk about the drug abuse. Talk about, but then again, I also talk about the opioids that I was addicted to, and talk about the suicidal thoughts and attempts. that I've had over the years, and but you got to be honest. You got to be. One thing I learned, I did this program called Landmark, and it's about being the most powerful human being you can be. And I used to think vulnerability was a weakness until I did this program, and I realized it's a strength. So now I'm completely vulnerable. Like, you can throw anything at me, and I'm like, well, that's how you think. That's how you feel. It's got nothing to do with me.
Yep.
And it's not that I don't care, but you got to let it go. My girlfriend, she's a social media influencer, and I mean, can I say it? Like, daily she gets 100 dick pics sent to her. Daily. I mean, she's got over 250,000 followers and stuff, and it's her full-time job. And I can't let that affect me because that's her job. She was doing it before we met. And so when she's online, I'm like, well, you're acting. You know, you're this, and then when we're together, we're together. So you gotta take a step back. It's someone is feeling this certain way, you can't control them. Yep. And if everyone has an opinion, everyone has an asshole. So
weird. Like the same thing almost.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I hit up Craig before doing this and just asked if he had any, after doing the podcast that he's done with you, if he had anything he might want to ask about. And he had a couple things that we had already talked about today, but there's a couple of interesting ones here that I'm curious about. One is if you've ever thought about doing any kind of like speaking tour to tell your story live.
Yeah, I actually was going through all this coming up to COVID and stuff. So I got full FBI clearance, and I had all my interviews, and I can actually now work in the probation centers all over the country. And that's why I was having this conversation with Kit yesterday, Kit Cummings. This guy has an amazing story as well, and we were talking about he's building this documentary that he's going to do. I mean, this guy was an absolute like biker dude, psycho guy, became a priest.
Oh wow.
And then became an alcoholic and got out of the priesthood and lost his wife and everything else, and then he's remarried, and now he realized his being here on this planet is to go, not to speak in the church, but actually speak into prisons, to speak to those. I mean, he said himself, he felt that I'm not religious or anything, I believe there's a higher power for sure, just don't give it a name. He believed that the Lord or wherever came down and told him, you're speaking to the wrong people. They don't need your help. These guys need your help. The homeless, the depressed, the people in prison, like so many people that are now just completely lost. That's why you're here. And so then he turned his whole life around, stopped drinking. I think he said 16 years now he's been sober, and he's working on all that. And so he's asked me if I'll be interested in coming into that as well, which would be amazing. I don't want to be so repetitive, saying the same story every time.
Yeah. And
this is actually good because it's freestyling, isn't it? We're just having a conversation.
Yep.
That's what I would like to do moving forward. And I've got a few good contacts, and it's crazy. The last person I spoke to about TED Talks was Kevin Robinson, and he had some good contacts at TED Talks. He actually suggested I get on there, and sadly he passed over 5 years ago now. But I've got another friend, Dr. John DeGarmo. He's fostered 57 kids and adopted 9, I think.
Wow.
And he was on TED Talks as well. And so I would love to do a TED Talks. I would love to speak in schools, colleges. I've spoken at Edinburgh University to 200 social work graduates, and it was crazy hearing that in the social work system fails because one kid will be with this social worker, but the next week he'll be a different social worker, the next week a different one. I had the same social worker for like 3 years or 4 years, and they said that's unheard of. So when you can't trust your mum, you can't trust your dad, you can't trust your biological family because they're not there for you, but this social worker's there and he's a man of his word at such a young child, that leaves an impression with you. And so finding out that social workers don't stay with children, that's I feel is a major problem. And I would love to be a part of that as well, of bringing that together, that it's not fair on the kids. And some social workers have to go to 8 houses in one day. How are you meant to give that family the time or know that that child is being abused because his mum and dad are sitting right there, and this kid who's fostered is getting abused, but they're taking money from the system? I'm getting pretty deep here, but that's something I would like to work on as well, part of Lineage Consulting Group.
Yeah.
So open up for everything. And Craig, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to do it more. I just don't want to bore myself telling the same story.
Yeah, I could totally see how it could end up that way and kind of feel like you get into the groove of the same thing over and over, whereas what you described maybe gives you a more, intimate personal connection to be able to kind of, like you said, freestyle how you're giving the message and who you're giving it to and what comes out of it, catered to the people and what they need, rather than, all right, I'm here to do my speech, all right, I did my speech, now we're gone, now we're going to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be authentic.
Yeah.
Like if I get repeating myself, it's going to come across as I'm reading a script.
Yep.
And people are going to walk out. They're going to be like, well, this guy's not boring. This guy's really not here in the room. And what I like to do when I have done talks in schools and colleges, and I look around the room and pretty much research who I'm talking to before I speak, because it has to be a PG version. Then there could be the R-rated version. Like if I'm talking in prison, I'm talking about slashing my wrists when I was 7 years old. I'm talking about, being molested. I'm talking about my dad throwing me in the fire. Like there's all this other shit. I'm talking about eating fried rice next to a dead dog covered in maggots at the back of a Chinese shop. Like I can talk about that because it's relatable to these people, but I can't talk about that in a school with 10-year-old kids because it's unrelatable.
And hard for a 10-year-old kid to grasp something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, couldn't comprehend that a 5, 6, 7-year-old child was living on his own, looking after himself because he was too scared to go home and get beaten up by his dad. And people, family members or whatever, they'll look at their children and be like, I couldn't imagine my little 7-year-old son having to defend himself and then having to defend his mum to protect his dad. Like there's a lot that I just think it was the area where we're living in. It was the 70s and there wasn't computers. I mean, I think we got a television probably when I was like 5 or 6 years old, but we didn't have television for the first 5 years of my life. So there was nothing else to do but either watch my dad be an alcoholic and beat the family up all the time, or go out in the streets and just mingle with the street kids. And that's what we used to do.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah. So
the other thing from Craig is do you have any ambitions or thoughts about like a future film project or anything in the works?
Yes, so I've got 2 short films coming out. One's called Her Call, and it was a producer over in Chicago that I met that she wanted to be a part of this film. So I'm this multi-millionaire gambler tycoon who, seriously, the last time I played poker was actually with Ryan Gutler and Dillaward and James Foster in Greenville. That was the last time I played poker. So this movie, I'm playing poker, and I'm meant to be the guy. Like on the table's $250,000. And this one guy, who's actually, his name is George Kostaros, and he's the kid in the school when I do the 360, and he goes, "Hey, you got to hang out with us more often."
Oh yeah.
Right. So he's in this film. He pretty much owes me $50,000, and we are the mafia in Chicago, and we're going to kill him. So and his sister is the producer of the movie as well. She stars in it, so that's going to be pretty interesting. She's won so many awards, and like I keep calling it Cannes, but Cannes Film Festival. She just got another award the other day. So this was a short film. I did it for free, but again, it's investing in yourself and investing in your friends, because her budget was 20 grand to make this 20-minute movie that she then wants to sell because it looks so professional.
Yeah.
And the other one we did is called Breaking Iron. It's about an Iron Man. And this one is, I also brought Shane Graham in, who played me in the movie, The Ride.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fucking his wife in this movie.
Oh my God! So he played you.
Yeah, we're on a triathlon and he knocks me out. So yes, so that was pretty fun as well. So hopefully both those movies get picked up. But again, they're short. I mean, 20 grand for one person just to come up with on these small projects is a lot to put out. So there are two that are ready and waiting. I've got into business with Andy Ruffle, and he has his own production company and everything. So we have 5 scripts on our computer right now. We've also spoken to Robin Robinson and possibly doing a movie about Kevin's life.
Nice.
And it'll be open, vulnerable, and honest. So I've said that we need to be relatable and powerful with our story. We want to inspire others, because like we said with Robin Williams, we're struggling at the top. So we have to basically look at how others live at the top. I mean, I speak, again, I keep saying parallel reference, but in my book I talk about the drug addiction I was on with the pharmaceutical drugs, but I was trying to be a voice for Dave Mirra with the opioids he was taking. And it's hard when you get to the top. You're the best of the best. Dave was the best of the best, but he couldn't get that high anymore when he was hitting triathlons. He couldn't get that high anymore with his family. Like, you have to live in the moment to get that high, and he couldn't. So sadly, it's easy when you're in pain to take an extra pill and then an extra pill, and it becomes an addiction. And I believe pharmaceutical drugs are killing more people than.
I think it's like the second largest cause of death or something like that.
So I say it's above suicide, definitely.
What is it?
And people don't talk about it because you can't take on these pharmaceutical companies. But I think it's time we do. I mean, look at this week already. How many heart attacks have we seen?
Yeah, it's
healthy people.
It's prescription drugs are 3rd after heart disease and cancer in the US and Europe.
Yep. So, I mean, it's a massive issue. And so I'll tell you, I haven't taken antidepressants since I thought of running my car off the road. I was at Robbie Madison's house in Sydney. He wasn't here, he was in San Diego. It was New Year's Eve, 1st of January 2012. He had just jumped San Diego Bay. And I know the family and everything, so I was up near Sydney in Nowra. So we were at his house watching him here in California jumping San Diego Bay. The 1st of January, I'm driving back from Sydney down to Melbourne, and I just went, fuck it, I've lost everything. Pilgrim, I was struggling with Pilgrim. I was in the 165 grand in debt. I had lost my wife, lost my daughters, about to lose my house. I had nothing left. 1st of January 2012, I closed my eyes and accelerated down the freeway. And my daughter in my head said, "Wake up, Daddy." And I woke up and I looked down, I was doing 180 kilometers an hour, like 130 mile an hour with my eyes closed. And so that day I stopped taking antidepressants because that was screwing with my mind. And then when Dave passed in 2016, on the 4th of February, I remember that day so vividly. Even Kevin Robinson phoned me that day because he needed some parts for his bike that Matt Hoffman couldn't give him to do the biggest backflip, and he needed some Lineage parts. Again, it's so crazy because I'm talking about people that are no longer here, Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with all that. I just, as I said, I go off on tangents and stuff. But
You're okay.
then
You're
I stopped taking pharmaceutical drugs on February 4th, 2016. And I'm in pain right now, as we all are in BMX. I like what Mike Escamilla's just been doing with this whole stem cell and everything. So we're going to catch up and talk more about that.
yep.
But I'm not I'm not getting back on the pills. And even now, I've got some growth going on in my stomach, so I'm taking all these. Oh God, why is my brain fried right now? I'm on all this medication right now for the month for 30 days, and so obviously I can't have alcohol or nothing. So I've been since the 1st of January, no alcohol, and I'll stay on that. I'm just a stubborn little prick. Like, if I decide to do something, I'll do it. And I'm like, well, because I became pretty much an alcoholic. I was a binge drinker over COVID, and letting that go, because I thought alcoholism was someone that just drank all the time. But alcoholism is also a binge drinker. And during COVID, some nights when I didn't have to go into Haro, I would drink myself to blackout. And I would wake up in the morning and I was covered in bruises. And it's because I fell to the kitchen bench and smashed my side or whatever. I'm like, did that come from? And so again, you have to realize these problems. And a lot of people, as I said, 48 people I know, and some were very close friends, have committed suicide since March 16th, 2020. Is it the drugs? Is it the alcohol? It's isolation. You know, when you're depressed, when you have all these demons in your head, the worst place to be is isolation. You need to be on your bike. I mean, they close skate parks, they put sand and everything into them, they close beaches and gymnasiums. It's like a lot of these adrenaline junkie people need to be busy and need to be out burning their adrenaline. And I totally got to that point, and thankfully I'm here in 2023.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad for it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a very unfortunate part of the world that we live in and reality as a human being. And I think through things like your movie and the book and just being here as a positive example for people, it's inspiring. I know that there's thousands and thousands of people out there who've been inspired.
I mean, another thing I would love to do with Lineage Consulting Group is create a platform or something that, if it's not just even BMX riders, if it's actors, singers, like when you've reached that top, there's no one coaching you how to come back to normality.
Yeah.
I would love to start something like that, like a coaching clinic that you're perfect the way you are. Oh, but I was making $100 million, now I'm broke. Well, you made $100 million, you can make it again.
Yeah.
I've seen friends go bankrupt, lose 20s of millions, tens of millions. But they've come back, and they've come back stronger. It's like, you've been there, you've done it, you can do it again. So if you can't get the high with your riding, like right now, I'm getting a high just talking to you.
Hell so, yeah.
It's being in the moment.
Yeah,
that's what I'd love to help. That's something close to my heart. It would start with BMX, of course. I don't want to see another friend take his life. And honestly, guys, if anybody's listening, I'm here anytime.
Yep. Yeah, always available via Instagram. I'm always there too. I think people sometimes get a wrong perception of like people who are like in your position or my position and doing what we do. That's just like there's no time for anything else that exists. But in reality, like I check my stuff every day. If somebody messages me, I try to get back to them as soon as humanly possible. And I pride myself on the fact that there's some people who are like, holy crap, I did not expect a message at all, let alone this fast.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like all we have is time.
Yeah.
And I did a post a couple of weeks ago. I said, what's the most precious thing in your life? Not mentioning family. And I believe it's time. All we have is time. You can't buy time.
Yeah.
And when I turned 50 and I knew these changes were happening at Haro, I put in to take 6 weeks unpaid leave. And I went all over Europe and Egypt and back to the UK, drove up to Scotland, and just, I wanted to say I'm alive. And even though I wasn't paid or anything, I was just like, look, you can't buy time. And when you have these moments with people in your life, and that's why I say I don't want to see another friend commit suicide. I've seen it enough. And we've got a long life ahead of us. And I'm here for you. So yeah, life is good.
Absolutely. So John, I mean, we've talked a lot about Lineage consulting and all these things, but what's next?
So the biggest thing for me is definitely reconnecting with my daughter. I haven't seen her, it'll be 12 years in 2 weeks. So she's 16 in 2 weeks, and I haven't seen her for 12 years. Spoke to my brother-in-law the other night, and we had a good talk. And I'm hoping she'll come around and want to see me again. I've been paying my child support until I became unemployed. So that's the biggest thing for me in my life. Is I'd love to have my daughter in my life. She's my meaning of life, and it was the biggest achievement I've ever made is being part of the creation of my daughter. So that's the future for me, is my number one priority, and to keep me going on a daily, which I love to keep busy because then I don't get depressed not having her in my life, is I'll keep doing the BMX. Hopefully I'll talk to more brands. I mean, everyone hits me up about GT and like, dude, you should do the proper bend with the Pro Freestyle Tour.
Someone said that in the chat.
It's crazy, and I'm like, well, I'm here. You've only got enough time. I would like to take on no more than 5 brands to do Lineage with, and because I still want to enjoy it. I don't want to feel like it's a job. I want to feel like I'm actually having fun with this, and traveling to Taiwan, seeing all these factories and these makers, because seeing it from your mind to a little paper napkin to actually holding the creation in your hand, as you said, it is art. And
this is my example. I have the drawings, and then there's this. Yes.
Nice.
Keep going.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It's like, wow, and that's why I collected every Lineage bike of every 01 serial number, because it's my own timeline with Haro.
Yeah.
It was whilst I was there, so I'll finish it off with the Bob Haro bike, the 2023s that come out in July. Well, I actually said to Kevin Connors, I was like, the number ones are coming in my name, but please give them to, like, Albies, Flatland Fuel, Planet, like people that have bought these bikes on back order. Share the number ones and let a consumer grab the number one serial number, because people do love it, knowing that it's limited edition.
Yeah.
Share the love. I just want my last one, the Bob Haro Freestyler, and then I'd love to continue the Lineage series with Haro and with other brands, hopefully. The more movies to come. Definitely want to do a ride too. Spoken about it a few times. Sadly, the ride is 80% non-fiction, 20% fictional.
Yeah.
I would say ride 2 would probably be 80% fictional, 20% non-fiction. Because if I talk about my early 20s, I was a complete slut. I was a dirty man, and I don't want to go down that avenue because it's not inspiring anyone. So I'd rather do more of a fictional story afterwards and carry it on. So that'd be pretty cool. That'd be good. And then, more talks. I'm the brand. I'm the ambassador for Adoption United Kingdom, and I'd like to do more with adoption and foster around America. I know I'm here for a purpose, and I'm here to hopefully take a stand for anyone and everyone and inspire them that, all we have is now, and today is the beginning of your life. I used to think live each day as if it's your last, Now I think live each day as if it's your first. So leave the past in the past. You can create your life from now, and anything is possible. And I think with that mindset and reading like Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, that is now how I live. This is all we have. All we have is now. We don't know what's going to happen. So, but you can create your future, and you can definitely prepare for it. And young athletes, invest. You know, you can definitely do that, but still enjoy the moment and be here and be present. And that's a message I want to spread all over the world, that, you know, you can be anything you want. Talk yourself into it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective versus living every day like it's your last and just being reckless and doing anything, or flip it, live every day like it's your first and build something.
Yeah. So that's my mentality now.
I love it. Well, we've been going for 2 hours and 45 minutes, so
Oh, nice.
I don't want to take too much of your time here. It's been amazing, and I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk to you.
No, Brent, it's been awesome. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, poor Capone wants to go out and do a pee, so
Yeah,
take him out. And no, I appreciate the time. I love that you're doing this and you're sharing the love of BMX and all across brands, because you know we got to build each other up. We got to support each other. The next 3 years is going to be tough on everyone. So yeah, support those brands, and brands are supporting each other. Like we can actually get through this. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so it's good times ahead.
I agree, and I would love.
BMX.
That's right. Robert said, "Tell John it was a great show. He did great, and so did you." Uh, Everybody's showing love. Say it. Kurt Schmidt, love you, John. Jason Smith, I love what you did with Haro. Bill Bright, you guys are awesome. Morbid Thrasher, great show. Was fun. So much good, positive.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. As I said, thanks for the support. Could never have been at Haro for 10 years if it wasn't for you guys supporting me in my vision and keeping Lineage alive. So hopefully, you know, moving forward, let's do, yeah, the most amazing bikes that we all love from the 80s. And keep riding, dude. Keep riding, because
Absolutely.
when you're in the moment, uh, there's no issues, there's no problems. Like when you get on that bike, you can't think about your childhood or paying the mortgage on Monday or anything else. Being in the moment is what you get riding the BMX, riding a bike.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah. So where can people find you online to keep up with everything you got going on?
So I've got, yeah, just John Bulgens, Buultjens. So that's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. JohnBulgensConsulting.com will be up soon, hopefully. Isaac from Big Bike BMX is at GoDaddy, so he's going to help me with that a little bit. I also got JohnBulgens.com. So I'll probably just start putting all my own personal archives onto this site, and instead of everyone asking me questions, I can put everything on there. So got a few projects for the next year coming up, and then we'll continue till I'm 55, 60, and I look at DMC and Moliterno. I mean, fuck, they're almost hitting 60. Sorry, guys, but they're killing it. They're still killing it.
And
So I look at that like, well, I've still got plenty of years to go.
that and there's a guy from Russia named Mendo who's got to be 70 by now. He started when he was 62 and he's still doing it. He's like, he was 68 in the video that he posted probably 2 years ago, so he's got to be 70 at this point, riding bikes. So we got a great future ahead of us.
Oh, we do, definitely. Pay it forward, and BMX doesn't owe me anything. I owe BMX everything.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in, and